Okay. Hello, can you hear us?
Hi, what's up?
Well, we're about to start the show. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Ready.
Welcome one and all to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today we are going to be talking about what I consider a very important issue. Should we be courting the far left? What or who do we consider the far left? Which is more of a threat to America in general? The question was asked, who would you vote for, Hasan or Trump? And I think it's an interesting thought experiment to go through. There was some disagreements, so I thought I'd gather people together to hash those out and have a discussion on it. Just a note before we begin, I know there's some tensions are high in different communities and things like that, so I might be a little more heavy-handed on moderation than I normally would be, because I do want the topic itself to be discussed at least a little. But other than that, I'm just going to give the mic to you guys and let you guys go at it. We're going to hand the mic first to Econoboy, give his thoughts, and then we'll just kind of go around. Econoboy, start us off.
Yeah. So, for those listening, the topic is courting the far left. I take that to be essentially a political and strategic discussion about whether or not and how exactly we should or should not court the far left. And the way that I think of the far left, there's a lot of polls on this. Based on all the research that I was able to do, about 10% of people that vote for Democrats call themselves socialist, and about another 10% call themselves extremely liberal. So if we were to think Kamala got about 49% of the vote, that's to say that something like 10% of those people are either extremely liberal or socialist by their self-identification. And so I think that what that means to me is that we should take what those people say, those actually existing far-left voters, seriously. That to the extent that they have demands, they should have a seat at the table. We should try to come up with some sort of coalition and platform that can balance the needs and desires of the far left and the very, very centrist in the party, recognizing that we're in a big tent. And then when it comes to anti-electoral leftists and anti-democratic leftists, which I'm sure we'll talk about on the show, I think that to the extent that those people have big platforms, Democrats should engage with those platforms. So if Pete Buttigieg wants to go on Hassan's stream and espouse the greatness of his campaign or the Democratic Party or something, I don't really have a big problem with that. But I don't think that people like that should be part of the inner party or should be invited to the DNC. Somebody like Mamdani, if he becomes the mayor of New York, probably should get a speaking spot at the DNC, but probably not people like Hasan, because it's not clear to me that Hasan is quote unquote an ally of the Democratic Party. And what I'll say is one last thing. I'll say that, I think Destiny had said at some point, he had clarified that essentially people who use the label of socialist should be treated like Nazis. I take that to mean that they should be very harshly socially excluded from the broader movement of the Democratic Party or the broader left. But I think that would be extremely counterproductive because, again, these are just a big chunk of the people of the Democratic Party. I think I get accused of wanting to shrink the tent because I want to primary pro-filibuster senators, right? on ideological grounds. But I think to say that we should shun basically everyone that calls themselves a socialist in the Democratic Party, that's to say that we should shun essentially 10% of the base, which is, I don't know, I just think that's much more counterproductive than just trying to build a coalition with them.
Okay, thank you, and we will get into it as we go. I'm going to hand the mic next to Pisco. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it obviously depends on what you mean by court and what you mean by the far left. So obviously, I would be in support if by far left you mean people like Mamdani, people like AOC, these kinds of people who identify, Bernie Sanders as a socialist, I think that there are absolutely things that we can agree on with socialists, and we're a big tent enough coalition if what you mean by far left includes those people. But ultimately, this is a conversation I think about semantics. What is the far left? Who are the group of people who are like anti-liberal or anti-constitutional that you want to exclude? And to what extent do you want to exclude them? Does exclude mean invite them, don't invite them to create a party platform? Does exclude mean not interact with them in any respect, even as Econoboy mentioned, to like use their platform either for a debate or to like promote the candidacy or to try to convince people? I don't know if I'll go that far. I certainly wouldn't want to incorporate any Marxist-Leninist ideas into the Democratic platform if that's what's being meant by courting the voters or courting the far left. So ultimately, it's a semantic argument, but we're not here for that. We're here because, in my opinion, there's been a bad faith campaign to basically smear me and Econoboy and Josiah as having moved to the far left, as having put space in our coalition to really allow for anti-democratic, anti-constitutional ideas and to not push back on them. And I think what you'll find that there are tensions right now, I think, in the different coalitions, the different viewer bases, but they don't have to do with a big substantive disagreement. I encourage everyone who's watching, actually look during the course of this conversation, how much disagreement substantively is there going to be? If we're talking about like this semantic game about what a socialist is a socialist a Nazi? Stephen is going to just fucking get crushed on that argument by Econoboy in terms of what a normal person means by the term socialist and how those terms are used. If he can produce any evidence whatsoever that me, Econoboy, or anyone on Live and Learn did something wrong in like bringing on the vanguard, notice if he can bring up anything that shows that we are taking a kind of illiberal approach or trying to do some kind of bad faith, like a courting of the tanky vote. If he can point to any specifics, or are really just going to have more fucking nitpicking on the sides while he encourages and frankly, I think smears us as tankies, anti-liberal, and anti-constitutional. So I'm here definitely to get clarity on terms and to notice actually what is the room of substantive disagreement here, or is all of this a fugazi to cover up spite and personal conflict between him and other streamers? And is there really evidence that we're moving to the tanky left or the illiberal left?
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that. Let's give it first to Counterpoints. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my issue with this whole thing is that there are socialists, which I define, I think, in a good faith way for the decommodification of basic human need and workers owning the means of production. There are also communists who believe that the end result of our material analysis should be a moneyless, stateless, classless society. I think these people exist. I think they have clout. I think they have influence. And I would use specific examples in our sphere of influence, like Erin or Straighteraid, who says that she's a communist. I would use the examples like Hasan Piker, who I just watched earlier today, is effectively holding hands with Marxist-Leninists and saying that he is a Marxist-Leninist. He's just, playing softy with the Social Democrats and the Democratic Socialists. That way he can get clout and influence and then radicalize them down a funnel. So for me, what I'm trying to point out is that if you pretend that this person is normal and nice and fine and a part of the coalition, then you're going to lose the moderates, you're going to lose the center right, and for every leftist you gain, you probably lose 2 or 3 moderates. So, the vanguard, I have no idea what their politics are. I would frankly love to speak to them specifically about their politics. But if MLs are a part of the coalition, you're losing people. You're being politically ineffective. That's my argument.
Okay, thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Destiny, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that when I was making the rounds debating Nazis in 2016 to 2018, one of the most common things that I heard from kind of like the centrists that basically gave more credence to all of the far right ideas was point to where I support this. Show me where I said that I'm racist. Show me where I said that I hate Jewish people, or I'm anti-Semitic, or I'm, trying to be a white supremacist. And there was always this like annoying fight that I would have to do where in order to start debating the Nazis, I'd have to chew through all of these epic centrists first who would say, well, I'm just a classical liberal. I'm Sargon of Akkad. I'm not actually a white supremacist. I just happen to give cover cover for all of these people. I don't think Econoboi or Pisco or Josiah or any of these other people, I don't think they're becoming tankies or anything like that. I just think there's a very annoying cover that's given to a lot of these people where there's like, we can 100% discern and decipher every single intention that Donald Trump has. We have no problem calling him a fascist outright. But then when you have people that hate the Democrats, that shit on our candidates, that attack everybody on our side constantly, we're like, well, I don't know what they really think or how they really feel. Or when it comes to people like Hasan, like even earlier today in my subreddit, Econoboy, when asked about supporting Hasan, will say things like, well, I don't think I necessarily agree with him on everything. He says, I don't have a generally positive view of Hasan, and I think I would flatly agree with many of the criticisms levied at Hasan. That's just in my mind, even though it seems like there's some kind of separation there. That's just a wild statement to make from somebody who openly supports terrorist groups that kill civilians, or openly supports enemies of the United States, or openly supports the subversive propagandizing of our entire political party to hijack the entire movement to destroy if not the Democratic Party, maybe even all of the entire United States of America. So I'm sure we'll get into it. I don't think it behooves us to just say all of this is a semantic disagreement. I think it's actually really important to define what a leftist is, because I think that it's important for the people to know where everybody stands, and it's important to get rid of people that are intentionally trying to obscure their beliefs and come in under the guise of being a leftist without actually stating, what their position is, and then having this this dual role that they get to play where they can propagandize people and radicalize them without actually ever stating what it is they're trying to do. Are you for the complete and total abolition of our democracy, or are you just somebody who wants the government to do more stuff?
And just to get clarity, so we know what we're talking about, Destiny, are you saying that Econoboy and Pisco are running cover for those leftists that you think are infecting the Democratic Party, or however you want to put it, right?
Yes, but I don't think it's like they're secretly tanky and so they want to provide cover for their tanky friends. I think it's more just like this. There's something that happens in the Democrat brain, and I've been guilty of it too, where you're so obsessively trying to seem like even-handed that you get rooted out in this world where you're like, I'm trying to be fair and I don't want to have like Hasan derangement syndrome, so I'm just going to say, they're not that bad. I don't know that much about any of this. I'm not sure, whatever. But what it causes is this reality where, the conversation for this podcast, what was talked about earlier, was should we appeal to leftists when it comes to gaining political power? When do leftists talk about appealing to liberals to try to gain political power? Or when do leftists say, hey, maybe we should chill on shitting on the party, forever and ever when it comes to getting political power? Like, why is the conversation only ever on the Democratic side of things? That's just very wild to me.
Okay. Well, the floor is open. Go ahead.
I was going to say they do. They say
I have a question.
Please go.
I have a question. Yeah. So this is both to Connor and to Stephen. Should some socialists, at least some, be catered to, be appealed to, and be part of the coalition?
No.
So you would agree, therefore, that Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mamdani should not be catered to and part of the coalition, correct?
Depends on what you mean when you say catered to.
Should they, for instance, ahead of the ticket being a socialist like AOC, Mamdani, if they are the nominees, should we support them?
Yes, but that doesn't mean you're catering to socialism.
Okay, but you understand.
Wait, hold on. You recognize that supporting somebody at the top of a ticket. Well, if you want to play the yes or no question, I can play the same game. Yeah. You understand that supporting somebody being at the top of the ticket doesn't mean that you are centrally supporting their ideology. For instance, it's possible to cater to, in a roundabout way, people that are further to the left of you without catering to far leftist beliefs, right?
Correct. But you would agree, like if a socialist is at the top of the ticket, socialist like Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Party should support the socialist at the top of the ticket, correct?
It depends what you mean by support, but generally, yeah, I think you should support.
Okay, so you're okay with socialists being part of the coalition, correct?
I don't really know if I consider Bernie Sanders or AOC to be like socialists.
And why is that exactly?
Because I don't think that they like fit under conventional definitions of socialism.
Do they want the decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production?
Yeah, so that's your definition. That's your proprietary definition of socialism.
That's
you agreed.
Most socialist definition. So, Econoboy, do you disagree with my definition?
Yeah. Okay. So just to hop in here. So yeah, I disagree that is. Okay. Do you want me to answer the question, Connor?
Give Econoboy space to answer. Go ahead, Econoboy, please.
So
I want you to do a line of Adderall.
Let Econoboy answer. Go ahead.
I probably should have done an edible instead of Adderall before entering this debate. But to answer your question, similar to capitalism, socialism is a diverse universe of people. There's a lot of people who call themselves socialists. Some of them are Marxist-Leninists. Some of them are like what you might call like moderate, like right-wing socialists, I guess, like me, who say that we should just collectivize the ownership of production. people have different ways of defining these things. For instance, capitalism includes people all the way from Fabian Liberty to people like Destiny, who basically endorses the Nordic model, right? And they're both capitalists, right? And so I think that of the 10% of people who call themselves socialists and are part of the Democratic Party base, obviously that's a very diverse group of people, ranging from the exact, essentially, people that I just mentioned as well. And I think that's a very sensible way to look at who calls themselves socialist and why. To Destiny's point of when
Donnie's not a socialist or that Bernie's not a socialist,
what,
that's crazy.
Just one more sentence to Destiny's point about when do like the left wingers ever cater to the moderates? Well, I mean, I seem to remember people like Bernie Sanders and AOC taking very collaborative positions with people like Biden when he was in office. And I seem to recall like Mamdani, he took a very collaborative position with people like Brad Lander. And Mamdani's campaign, to the extent that it appealed to people broader than just the left wing, he made that conscious decision to do that. He didn't run on a campaign of seizing the means of production. He ran on a campaign of like freezing the rent and providing childcare to people, right? I mean, I take that to be in some sense a means to cater to a broader base of people than just left wingers, essentially.
So I think that if we want to talk about catering to socialists, I think that the issue that we have is there exists a world where you only have, or you have a bunch of like Bernie Sanders, AOC, maybe Mamdani types of people that are part of your movement and part of your coalition. And I think that if we lived in a world where there was a rich media environment with a lot of people who were socialists, who, you know, some supported the liberals, some kind of didn't, and some were like really against it, then we could have that conversation. But right now, it seems basically ubiquitous across the entirety of the left-wing media landscape to aggressively and violently shit on and attack Democratic candidates as harshly as possible. I just saw, and I'm sure you guys saw, that Vanguard tweet saying that Pete Buttigieg looked like and smelled like a rat. Pete is one of the most like popular Democratic figures making the rounds on shows. I just watched Crystal Ball fucking roast the fuck out of a senator from Michigan because she wouldn't give like the singular one answer on the Gazan issue. If this is the world we're going to live in, where you want to say, oh, well, socialism encompasses a broad range of people, but when I look to the media environment, almost every single person that would even flirt with the label socialist relentlessly shits on the Democratic Party. I don't know if I can really say, yeah, sure, we should also appeal to these people. It's just not the right media environment.
There's a definitional issue here, which is you're saying that Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani are not socialists. Explain that.
That's not really responsive to anything I just said.
No, because you were not responsive to the issue at hand, which has to do with the definition. Yeah. So the question is, if you're defining socialism to only include the people that Steven doesn't like, then maybe there's not actually a disagreement here in terms of who like should be leading the party or something.
So I wasn't defining socialism as people I don't like. I was defining socialism. So we can talk about definition of socialism. What I'm looking at right now is the socialist media environment. My earlier argument was that I don't know if I would even consider like Bernie Sanders and AOC to be hardcore socialists. If I wanted to supply that argument,
socialist at all.
Sure, socialist at all. Well, right now, who are the socialists all shitting on almost more than anybody else? It's AOC and Bernie Sanders. So, I mean,
whether they're shitting on them or not, Stephen, whether they're shitting them or not isn't the question. That's a separate question. Are they shitting or not shitting? The question is, should socialists be part of the coalition? You just said that Bernie isn't a socialist. He identifies as such. AOC is not a socialist. She identifies as such. Mamdani isn't a socialist. She identifies as such. What's your evidence they're not socialists?
So identifying as a political thing doesn't make you that political thing. That's a tautology, and that would be nonsense, number one. And number two, the question wasn't should they be part of the coalition. The question is, should we appeal to them? Those are two fundamentally completely different questions.
Destiny, to be clear, though, you're narrowing your position. It was just last night when you said explicitly, anyone that uses the socialist label should be treated like a Nazi, right? Now,
in the media environment is what we're talking about. Now, I'm commenting on your show.
You clarified then, Destiny. Okay, well, that's what you said last night. If you're clarifying just people within the media environment, then I'm just saying that that's a useful narrowing of the discussion then, because
you can call it a narrowing if you want, but anybody that's watched I don't shit on AOC, I don't shit on Bernie Sanders even, and I've been supportive of Mamdani for the.
I think useful is one way to put about it. I think useful is one way to put it. I think Weasley is another way to put it, and I think it is Weasley. I think you're backing off of the strong position. The strong position is socialists shouldn't be a part of our fucking coalition. And now when you're getting pushed, I guess now it's the media environment. Now it's but you took a strong position.
I didn't say socialists shouldn't be part of the coalition. I said we shouldn't be trying to to actively appeal to socialists. Do you understand that those are two separate things?
They're different statements. They're correct. They're different statements. But you said
No. They mean fundamentally two completely different things.
They're two different
right?
statements that mean different things. They're two different statements
cool.
that mean two different things. But your position, is it your position, therefore, that the Democrats should, as part of their coalition in terms of who to vote for, what kind of policy support, to humor people like Mamdani, humor people like AOC, and humor people like Bernie Sanders? And if that's the truth, then I think that
I don't know what that statement means. Should they humor them? Like, what does that mean? Like, put them on the ballot? I don't know what that question means. Like,
should they have a seat at the table? Whatever you take the seat at the table.
Seat at the table? Whatever
like,
are they going to be Outback Steakhouse?
That's what I'm asking you. So
what does that
for
mean?
example, you're the one who says that we need to excise these people from the party. I actually don't know what you mean by that. So whatever your vision of having a seat at the table, not being excised is, whatever you're using when you say these people need to be gone.
Let's
under
let
that definition.
Destiny,
do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's let Destiny. Those are good questions, Pisco, and I'd like to know the answers too. Right? What do you mean, Destiny, when you say we need to excise these people? How do you see that?
Yeah, my fixation is almost universally on the media environment when I'm having these conversations. I think when I was watching you guys talk, it was also generally on although sometimes you guys would try to go back to AOC, but like politicians operate kind of in a different world than the media environment operates in. Most of my criticism on the media environment that all calls themselves like leftists or socialists, seem to relentlessly shit on Democrats. And I just think it's a really unhealthy and bad world, again, where you see a Michigan senator wants to dip her toes into the podcasting world. And one of the jokes I made about Kamala is one of the reasons why she probably didn't do any shows is because she would get fucked by the right, the centrist, and the left. And she goes on a leftist show and she gets fucking shit on because they only want to talk about fucking Palestine. This is a senator from a blue state, from Michigan. Jesus, that's insane to me. And it would be nice if we actually had like a strong center-left position and a strong center-left media apparatus, and not just a bunch of leftists who fucking hate the party.
Do you understand our position to be that we disagree with your assessment that leftists constantly shit on the Democrats? Do you think that we disagree on that?
I'm not sure all the time. I can't tell.
So you're not sure. So we're here to discuss something where you're not sure if we agree with you on the position that the lefties constantly shit on Democrats in ways we don't like. We agree that lefties constantly shit on Democrats in ways that we don't like. We agree with Hutch, for example, when they constantly shit on people like Biden in certain ways, even though I shit on Biden in some respects. We agreed on the AOC tweets that they shouldn't have shit on her that way. And so there's no disagreement there. So that obviously isn't what we're here to discuss on a point where you're unsure that we disagree on.
I wasn't saying that we had I was asserting strongly that we massively disagreed there. So, okay, what was Counterpoints?
I got something I massively disagree with. So, okay. I think that every single leftist that I've talked to online, anybody who has any kind of political knowledge whatsoever, defines socialists as decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, and they use that definition repeatedly. I think that my frustration is that there are a bunch of quote unquote social democrats who talk about universal health care, or they talk about, making rent cheaper or some shit like that, which are social democratic Scandinavian policies. And I think they're using the term socialism backdoor in order to rehabilitate the image of this. And not just that, Hasan Piker and plenty of far lefties, plenty of MLs, probably the Vanguard as well, they're ecstatic that this is happening. They're ecstatic that Mamdani has social democrat policies. They're ecstatic that AOC have social democrat policies. They're ecstatic that Bernie Sanders have social democrat policies because it rehabilitates the word in my mind. That shift of the Overton window to the fucking far left is an insidious plot by twats to manipulate the Democratic Party.
I'll ask you, Connor,
and it's going to ruin electoralism.
So we're going to get some actual clarity here. So to be clear, Stephen, you don't disagree that people like Mamdani, AOC, and Bernie, they're fine to be in the party, and we're fine to appeal to the kind of issues that they care about in their positions, correct? You don't have a problem with that?
I would say, hold on, real quick.
I'm asking Stephen a question. I'm going to get to you and see if you disagree with Stephen, actually.
Second, I want to say something before you and Destiny talk for the next 40 fucking minutes. What I would say is that if the socialists are proposing social democrat policy, but then they get what they want, and then they try to yank the political window further left, that is something 100% that I oppose. Destiny, you and Pisco, go ahead and fight for the next.
I just want to ask, and I'll ask. I'm going to go to you, Connor, and see if you agree with Destiny, because I think we might all have a more disagreement with you, Connor, than we have within each other in terms of the substantive opinion. So I'm going to ask Stephen, do you have a problem with these people, the people identified, Mamdani, Sanders, AOC, being part of the Democratic coalition, and however you define Democratic coalition, and having their positions catered to, or people having their positions in general as part of the Democratic coalition? Do you have a problem with that?
Okay, so there's two separate questions. So one, like generally, I'm probably almost always going to support a blue candidate over a red candidate in this current media environment or in this current political environment, number one. But number two, when you say, do you have a problem appealing to them? I mean, that means different things. If you say, like, would I have a problem if we were to appeal to Bernie Sanders coming out and saying, I want to socialize all of the means of productions in the United States, I would have a problem with that. But if you're saying, do you have a problem appealing to Bernie and AOC and Mamdani saying, we need to find ways to make, rent cheaper in cities, and that might mean a policy like rent control that I personally don't like, but, if they want to try it, I mean, I wouldn't be, like, fundamentally opposed to having that as part of my party's platform, then no, I mean, like, it would depend on what things we're talking about appealing to.
Like, agreed. You're okay with the socialist being at the top of the Democratic ticket in the sense of socialist in the Bernie Sanders sense.
But this is part of the issue. You call
Correct?
it...
Is that right or no? Am I wrong?
This is not like a simple thing. You're like doing like the what is a woman at me? What is a socialist?
No, I'm asking you. Do you have a problem with Bernie Sanders being at the top of the ticket?
You got to let Destiny answer.
That's a specific question.
Top of the ticket? No, like if him being a senator from Vermont, no. If he was president, probably not.
Yeah.
So when you say a socialist, if you're talking about somebody who wants to abolish by law all of private enterprise and maybe even attack the democratic underpinnings of our political parties, right, and have a single party rule, I would be opposed to that.
But that doesn't describe Bernie. It doesn't describe Mamdani. It doesn't describe AOC. Correct?
No, but Mamdani, Bernie, and AOC are on the outer perimeter of what is considered socialist, and they're attacked by the center part of what is socialist. That's my issue. You could probably find an outer perimeter fascist that I might be okay with. If he's some fascist who's like, yeah, I think we should protect America as an ethno-state, and I'm defining ethno-state as like the current ethnic composition of America, and I think that we should have like stronger rules on immigration. I was like, yeah, I probably fucking support this dude or whatever.
The problem is that, like, and you understand, and Econoboy would lay this out, that Bernie, AOC, these types, they come from a long tradition of democratic socialists from like UK, Australia. He brought up Clement Attlee, and this is not some fringe movement. These are democratic socialists that exist in countries all over the world. So we're not talking about this idiosyncratic belief of socialism. It's a version of socialism that exists, and you're okay with it being part of the party. So the question isn't one of categorical. You're okay with some socialists. You would vote for some socialists. I'll ask Connor the same question. Connor, are you okay with someone like Bernie Sanders being at the top of the ticket, AOC being at the top of the ticket of the Democratic Party?
No, I would either abstain from voting or I would fucking vote against them. Like, for instance, if there's a moderate Republican compared to AOC or Bernie, not that moderate Republicans exist anymore, but if they existed, I would pick a moderate Republican over AOC or Bernie.
I think the bigger disagreement's between you and Destiny there. I think Destiny's okay with some socialists
to be clear,
being a part of the Democratic coalition.
Connor is a Republican, so I would expect him to say that. Yeah, no shit. But voting for somebody is a lot different than appealing to somebody. These are two different things, and we keep playing like this clever game of trying to swap.
Where do you think?
Let Destiny finish. Hold on. Let Destiny finish his thought. Please go ahead.
That's it. No, I'm just saying that like appealing to somebody is a lot different than voting for somebody. I'm guessing if I was in New York and there was a plethora of candidates, Mamdani probably wouldn't be my first choice, but I'd probably vote for him in the primary, or I'm sorry, in the general. But that doesn't mean I would like want to appeal to a socialist or whatever.
I agree that
like we have to. I think there's a useful thing to look at what this actually looks like in actually existing politics, right? So in 2016, when Bernie Sanders got 45% of the vote in the primary, something like that. He was involved in the platform committee for the DNC. He was like a main speaker at the DNC in 2016. He was able to extract a lot of concessions to the party. Like, I think that because of him, the party added in marijuana legalization, a $15 hour minimum wage, I think carbon pricing, and I think maybe there was some stuff about the death penalty. I want to say that was something that Bernie Sanders really pushed to add into the Democratic Party platform. Those, and again, that's like a very direct appeal to Bernie Sanders and like an appeal to the unity between the centrists and the socialists and the Democratic Socialists.
No, nothing. What policy there was socialist?
Okay, so Destiny,
here's we're going to run into the problem, because nothing that you just said there was socialist, and there's this game that's played where
Destiny, you're wrong about that. You're completely wrong. Okay, so
15 an hour is socialist.
Okay, do you think a progressive income tax is socialist?
Not necessarily, no.
Right. So the Communist Manifesto proposed a progressive income tax, right? So
does that
obviously
make it a socialist policy?
I would say, generally speaking, that the Communist Manifesto, the manifesto of the Communist Party, like it probably is something of an authority on what it means to be a communist party.
The Communist Manifesto is a pamphlet made so that farmers could read it and join a revolution against the state.
The only reason,
is that really what we're going by the defining document of what all, like what?
Destiny, the only reason
aspects of communism and socialism that are
shared
by democracy.
Oh my God, this is so bad faith. So Econoboy brings up a point. He says, "Is this policy socialist?" As sort of embodied in the Communist Manifesto, and you go a broader point and say, "Well, the Communist Manifesto has this other purpose." That's not the question on the table.
That's not the point. So no, that's not the point. So the point is that It's not about whether or not we would semantically define something like a progressive income tax as communist or not communist. It's about these broader movements and what their general ideological disposition is on all of the different set of possible positions within the policy debate. So I would agree to your point that like in terms of socialism being the decommodification of labor and also like the collective ownership of the means of production, if that's the way that you define socialism, then obviously these aren't like socialist policies, quote unquote, but that doesn't mean that you're not appealing to like the broader socialist movement and the broader like socialist apparatus of advocacy when you propose things like a $15 an hour minimum wage or
Econoboy, just for clarity, so I understand, you're saying when you say I want to appeal to socialists, you're saying things like, oh, pick policies that socialists would also like.
I'm saying that insofar as socialists and very progressive Democrats are a part of the actually existing base of Democratic voters, they should have some proportional say in things like party leadership positions, committee assignments, the platform of the Democratic Party, fundraising distribution, activist-based organizing, strategic discussions. They should have some kind of proportional say in all of those discussions.
But the problem is those people, if they truly identify as socialists and not just like liberal light or socialist light or whatever we're calling these people, they're not going to be pushing for these outer perimeter things that socialists might agree with when it comes to liberals. So when you say like a $15 an hour minimum wage or like a progressive taxation system, these are quote unquote socialist policies because they're mentioned in the Communist Manifesto, you don't need communism or socialism to talk about either of those issues. And what I don't like is this weird game that's played where somehow socialists are allowed to no true Scotsman every single good thing that our capitalist liberal society has produced and say, oh, well, you like vacation days? That actually came from socialism. You like a minimum wage? That came from socialism. You like labor unions? That came from socialism. And every bad and shitty thing is ascribed to the capitalist part, despite the fact that that's what's even creating the necessary prerequisite wealth to even have these other things.
Wait, Destiny, what does that have to do with? Wait, I don't know what that has to do like at all with what I just said. What I'm saying fundamentally is that I think it's sensible to make policy concessions to the broader socialist apparatus insofar as they're a part of the base. It sounds like you don't even.
We don't have to make that's not a policy concession to a socialist. It's literally not. Hold on. Wait. Without, no, absolutely not.
Yes, it absolutely would.
If you got rid of all the socialists, could you still get a $15 an hour minimum wage?
Yeah.
Then it's not a policy concession to socialism.
Wait. No. Econoboys
under really quick, Pisco. Destiny, even under quote unquote liberal economic frameworks, people in my replies are calling countries like the Nordic societies liberal capitalist societies, even though they do quote unquote socialist things as you would just define, like social ownership of the means of production. Like there's a lot of quote unquote socialist policies that those countries have engaged in that people are labeling as liberalism and doing these kind of things. And it's like, whatever, if we want to have narrow definitions of things, that's totally fine with me. But I think that insofar as like the socialist movement, and when we went to the topic of the debate, courting the left, right? Conceding things to the left, the broader left. I include very progressive Democrats in that who might identify as capitalists or might be misaligned in some way. That includes things like broader progressive policies, like, I mentioned the death penalty, minimum wage, things like that as well.
When I say court the left, and when I was designing this topic, maybe I could have been more clear. I'm not talking about issues that both liberals and leftists share. Like, both of them agree that we should treat kids nicely. Both of them agree that we should be kind to our neighbors, things like that. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about things that are specifically and uniquely
name
left.
them. So
well,
if
no,
you're
but,
finding
like,
the economification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production.
Holy fucking shit. So if
Hasan is a good example, right? The example.
Hasan isn't a policy. Hasan isn't a policy. If you're talking about appealing to people, Econoboy gave you a response. He's talking about things that these people care about, socialists care about. If all you're talking about is people,
no. Okay, so I'm gonna say something that pisses me off about this conversation. Oh, somebody else started talking. I'm gonna roll my eyes. Shut the fuck up, Pisco. Take your eyeballs and fucking shut them the fuck up, okay? So saying everything good is socialism is dumb as fuck.
No one
okay?
said that.
Not what I'm doing.
Yeah, we did.
No
We
one
just
fucking
did. I just
said
listened to
that,
it. Hey,
dipshit.
shut the fuck
No
up.
one
I listened to
fucking
you
said that,
bots for the
dipshit.
past 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Shut the
but
fuck
we didn't
up.
straw man the shit out of you,
Shut
Connor.
the
You're
fuck
being
up.
an idiot.
You're fucking
All right, shut
idiot,
the fuck
dude. You
up.
didn't say that. No one
Hey,
said
my
that.
turn. I have the talking stick. Shut the fuck up. Okay. So saying like, oh, a minimum wage is socialist, Progressive taxes is socialist. Firefighters is socialist. Police are socialist. Teachers are socialist. This is the kind of fucking bullshit that is the obfuscation that I'm talking about, where you're basically talking about normie lib governmental policies that are perfectly conducive to a free market fucking state. And you're like, oh, it's just a gradation of the economics. Well, why don't we just go with the right-wing definition of socialism, where socialism is when the government does anything ever whatsoever.
So,
then at that point, I'm a socialist.
You're not listening.
JD Vance is a socialist. Everybody's a fucking socialist.
Hold on. Give it to Pisco and Econoboy to respond. Go ahead.
So Econoboy specifically didn't say that. I'll let Econoboy do, but you're just not listening. But I want to talk after Econoboy.
So just to be clear, again, I'm grounding everything that I'm saying in the actually existing people that call themselves socialists and call themselves very, very progressive.
If there's a good policy,
if I could just finish, Connor, all the bullshit about interrupting. So
no, I heard it.
Okay. Well, you interrupted, so just give me a second here. I'm grounding this in the actually existing people that call it socialism, that call it whatever, very progressive capitalism or very progressive like policies in general, right? So insofar as you're saying, oh, my narrow definition of socialist policies is decommodification of labor and the socialization of the means of production, then to be fair, according to me and according to some other policies that have been proposed, that is like almost exactly what we would be doing.
Give us an example, just an example of a
policy.
Stop. Is there a good example of a policy that is
I didn't come here to play the no true Scotsman for fucking
wait, not the policy game. I'm just curious because
I'm doing the exact opposite.
Okay, wait. Econoboy keeps bringing up like AOC and Bernie Sanders. Can you name somebody in the media environment that identifies as a socialist that is friendly towards the Democratic Party?
Like in the mainstream media environment?
Anybody in the media
environment. Why is that relevant to the conversation? You want to change the conversation?
Make another point.
I don't want to change the conversation because politicians have to operate within the very real world of trying to get elected. So necessarily their positions are going to be probably a bit more constrained. And also, these are people that, I mean, maybe Connor has, but I don't shit on AOC or Bernie Sanders. That was never what this conversation was ever about, like ever. Like, I'm curious, in the media environment, are there any people that identify as socialists that are friendly towards the Democratic Party in the United States of America?
Why is that relevant to whether or not the Democrats
Because my main criticism, I'm telling you, because my main criticism is that you're saying Democrats should appeal to socialists, and you're picking the outer perimeter socialists that are the least socialist people who have won elections by being the least socialist people, saying that the outer perimeter beliefs that we're appealing to are things like a 15-hour minimum wage, which aren't even necessarily socialist policies, when the issue we have is that the central tenets of socialism, like the abolition of all free enterprise, the abolition of all private property, the destruction of the political parties in the United States of America, those are the people that are dominating the media environment. And you're asking us to appeal to those people to capture people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. I'm not worried about the AOCs and Bernie Sanders. I'm worried about the people that worked for Bernie Sanders, like your Brianna Joy Grays, or the people that are running the entire left-wing media online apparatus, which is why I'm asking for a single person who identifies as a socialist that supports the Democratic Party.
So if you're asking for a single person who identifies as a socialist that supports the Democratic Party, there's obviously a lot of those people. I just said those are 10% of the people that vote for Democrats. Now,
I want to make this point because it's relevant to the conversation we're having.
Okay.
Fuck you, Pisco. If every time you open your fucking mouth, I go, shit.
You guys are, it's impossible for you guys to linearize because your whole job here is to muddy the waters.
I think you're muddying the water. That's exactly what I'm going to accuse you of momentarily. So shut up.
You were brought in. You and Wick are being brought in to give cover to Destiny.
Counter.
I'm going to offer.
Hold on, Counter. Stop. Pisco first, and then you can respond.
So
go ahead.
Clearly, with respect to policies that socialists support, if what we mean by appeal to socialists is to literally propose policies that these types of socialists would support, you guys are okay with them, certain of these policies, right? And we're just now defining what the scope of that agreement is, what the scope of that overlap is, but you don't have a problem in principle with appealing to socialists if by appealing to socialists we mean promoting policies that they like, correct?
Yeah, but that's a meaningless statement.
Policies are good.
Okay, so now
wait, because the question would be, are you okay with appealing to members of the Ku Klux Klan?
They like clean drinking water. Are you sympathetic?
Let's say that you do like city renovations.
So now
clean drinking water.
So now let's actually talk about the policies and whether they get to
No,
the
you have to
core.
answer that question. Would you be okay
I'm
having a
okay
party
with
that
I'm
builds
okay
in
with
Black Quinn?
I'm okay with a party. I'm totally willing to bite bullets. You know I bite bullets. I'm totally willing with a party to appeal to members of the Ku Klux Klan if what is meant by that is appealing to common sense policies that everyone can.
Excuse
me. Let me finish. Wait. It's not a pointless question. It's not a pointless question because there are policies that you would consider socialist. I think under your definition, no true Scotsman definition of socialist, that maybe the Democrats should appeal. So, for example, would you be against? Do you think, first of all, that a national healthcare service is a socialist policy?
No.
Okay, can you give an example of a socialist policy?
Things that involve taking away the means of production from private owners, from capital owners, and giving that so that the workers are exclusively the ones that are in control of the means of production.
So a single payer healthcare system, let's say a health insurance system, let's put it aside national healthcare, a single payer healthcare system that makes it illegal or outlaws private insurance, you would not say that's socialist?
If you're talking about the government owning everything from the top down, then including the hospitals, then theoretically you could call that socialist. Some people
would you call that socialist? Would you call that socialist? Yes or no?
I would call it a state-owned enterprise. Or state-owned enterprise is socialist. I mean, like technically not really, but sure, we can say.
Wait. Is your answer that a single payer system is not socialist? Is that what your answer is?
I wouldn't call it socialist, but if you wanted to, for the purpose of this conversation, sure.
No, I don't know. I want to know your opinion. So I'm asking your opinion. Your answer is no. Single payer is not socialist. Okay, and
I don't think it's necessarily like a socialist policy. You could call it if you wanted to. You could, but
no, I'm not asking if I wanted to. I could. I'm asking your opinion. I'm not saying if you wanted to, you could.
You want me to give you a yes or no answer to an incredibly complicated question?
I want your opinion, dipshit. Hey, dipshit. I want your opinion. I want your opinion.
You don't want an opinion. You want a yes or no?
I want your opinion. I want your opinion.
You don't even know what it is to state-owned enterprise.
Do you think single payer?
Hold on. Let Pisco ask his question.
Single payer?
Pisco's going to shut up while Destiny answers
I'm
the
not
question.
asking would someone else, could you? I'm asking you, Stephen Bunnell. Do you consider single payer to be socialist?
Okay, now that you've asked that, shut up and let him respond.
No. Okay, so this is who's the no true Scotsman here? You guys were saying like the policy that most people who would absolutely consider to be socialist is not socialist. And so our working framework of socialism is only tankyism, only people who want to decommodify everything and have government ownership of everything. And it's preposterous. You're just not operating with the way people use those words.
That's great. That's literally not the argument, though. But if you wanted to argue that if we were to call it socialist and you wanted to socialize the healthcare system, the reason why you would be doing that wouldn't be because you're trying to appeal to socialists.
Weasel words, Stephen. Weasel words.
It's called politics. I know
if you want to.
Can I finish my answer?
Yeah,
Holy shit.
Ahead,
there's a difference between doing something by, so for instance, I'm a free market capitalist, but that doesn't mean I oppose government intrusion into every single sector or even a government monopoly on things like, say, utilities, because there are some things that the free market doesn't solve for. To say that I don't think the free market solves for this, so we should have utility companies ran by the state, is not the same as saying I'm appealing to fucking socialists.
I'm not saying it's the same. I'm not saying.
So when you ask me if a single payer system would be socialist, I might say, I guess you can consider it social if you want. The reason why I'm advocating, though, for a single payer system isn't because I'm trying to appeal to socialists. It's because I think free market capitalism cannot solve our problems.
So this is the obfuscation.
Yes or no? Yes or no? What is a woman? What is a woman? If we're doing that with socialism, we can do that. Okay, go for it.
So the obfuscation is, the question isn't.
There's no obfuscation, to be clear. You're just confused. Your confusion is not me obfuscating.
The obfuscation is as follows, and I'll identify it. The question isn't whether or not the intention behind promoting single payer system is one way or another. We're not talking about the intention behind why you propose one policy or another. We're just asking in pure semantic terms, would most people call socialized medicine, socialized healthcare, would they call it a socialist policy? And your absurd deflection on that and say, no, I would not call it socialist. I think just you're not using the terms the way people use those terms.
Yes.
Here's a question. Wait. Do you think that Hassan would call it socialism?
I don't. Wait, why is that relevant?
Why is the largest left-wing streamer relevant to what mainstream thought is amongst leftists on the online media sphere? Did you just say that?
The Communist Manifesto, that is not authoritative on socialism, but Hassan Piker is.
No, the Communist Manifesto is not authoritative on
Hassan
socialism.
Piker is. Hassan Piker, who you said is a fucking limousine socialist. Yes. Yeah, he's definitive on that, but not the Communist Manifesto.
Hold on, I just want to be clear. You're telling me that something that was written almost 100 years ago is more authoritative on what modern-day socialists believe than what Okay. Well, I encourage you to do more research when it comes to politics.
Let me step in here. So if we're appealing at that point, though, Destiny, if we're appealing to what people who call themselves socialists actually think, hey, the authoritative source of what socialism is the actually existing socialists today and what they believe in, right? Then in terms of whether or not we're like acquiescing or appealing to the socialist movement, then yeah, like the Bernie Sanders platform concessions of 2016 would count within that reasonable framework, that he was able to raise the minimum wage requirement of the Democratic Party National Committee. He was able to add in things like legalizing marijuana. And so we're hopping back and forth between, oh, well, some socialists say socialism is decommodification of labor.
The difference there is Bernie Sanders is appealing to liberals. Liberals aren't trying to appeal to socialists.
Okay,
right?
no,
when Bernie Sanders recommends the legalization of marijuana, that's not socialists, right?
Okay,
that's Bernie Sanders trying to do something in a liberal capitalist framework.
Okay, so
he didn't say the government needs to grow weed. Sorry.
Okay, so number one, I take it that you take back the thing you said in the beginning of this debate of when do socialists ever appeal to liberals by just now saying that was an appeal to liberals.
100%.
To add those
No, because I said at the beginning, I don't really consider these people socialists. Follow the conversation, okay?
Okay, so now Bernie Sanders isn't a socialist.
I don't consider these. Didn't I say at the beginning of this conversation?
Okay.
I don't really consider these people real socialists. No.
But Destiny, but what you did say was the actually existing contemporary socialists like Hasan are authoritative on what socialism is. And so if people like Bernie Sanders, and if I could just finish my point, if I could just finish my point, fuck's sake, if people like Bernie Sanders and people like Mamdani and people like AOC say things like publicly owned grocery stores and single payer healthcare systems and the expansion of a public education are socialist policies, then we have to agree with them, or at least we have to say that they're a major influence on what it means to be a socialist policy under your own framework.
No, and I would like an opportunity to speak.
No, I want Destiny to really clarify that really quick. Just like, does that make sense?
I really don't, because then I'm going to sit here with my hand on my dick and balls for the next 10 minutes, so I would like an opportunity to speak.
Hold on.
You guys
hold on, stop. Counterpoints, please. Destiny was asked a direct question. I'm going to let him give you a direct answer. And I'll give it to you after.
Connor should go right over me. Okay, listen. I don't think that you look to the lawmakers in a democratic system to see who your ideological thought leaders are for certain movements in the United States necessarily. Okay, they're running in certain districts and they're running under the confines of trying to operate within some electoral system so that they can get stuff done. I think that if you want to have this argument right now of like, does Bernie Sanders and AOC dictate what socialism is in the United States? Honestly, when you say it, maybe when Pisco said, I'm not sure what planet he's on right now, okay? But when you say it to Econoboy, I think you genuinely believe that, and I don't think you're saying that like with stupidity, and I don't think you're saying that with malice, and I don't think you're a secret tanky or anything like that, okay? I understand what you're saying there, and I want to agree with you.
Check
but the problem is that when I go outside, let me explain where the comments come from. The problem is that when we go outside of where Econoboy is, there is nobody in the United States media environment, okay, that like calls themselves like really like a socialist that would look to people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and say, oh yeah, those are socialists. They would call those people stepping stones in the radicalization funnel and good like liberal capitalists at the end of the day, which is why these are some people like
this is what you want. Fuck Hasan.
Hold on.
I want to turn.
Go ahead.
I want to turn because frankly, you guys are talking past each other, okay? The reason why I've reiterated my definition of socialism as narrow and tailored is because I'm not doing no true Scotsman, okay? I'm telling you what a fucking Scotsman is. It's a Scottish person from fucking Scotland, okay? It's a dude. He wears a kilt. He has his fucking dick out all the time, all right? So the point is, I'm describing very specifically what it is. And the reason why I would be pissed about universal health care or high quality education being labeled socialist is, number one, I think most committed socialists who have read any books about socialism wouldn't agree with that definition. And the only way that I would stretch it is if you considered universal healthcare or universal access to healthcare as a part of the decommodification of basic human needs, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure was just food, water, and shelter. But what I'm saying is that the reason why I think that Econoboy and Pisco, whether they like it or not, are useful fucking idiots for committed socialists and tankies and communists is because they fucking muddy the definitions. They fucking blur it around. They're just like, oh yeah, every public service is fucking socialist.
Connor, give us one example, therefore. Give us one example of a socialist policy. Go.
Making food, water, and shelter available to human beings at the point of service for free.
So you think, so why is that socialist, but doing the same thing with health insurance isn't? And it's because one is basic human needs?
Because I'm going based on, because I'm going off of the fucking definitions of shit. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so healthcare is not a basic human need, but food is.
All you're arguing is that healthcare is.
I'm asking a question. I'm actually asking you a question. Is food more of a human need than healthcare is, as you're seeing it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I think that's cooked. I think that's fucking cooked and arbitrary. I don't think you can.
Hold
point
on,
to-
wait. I gotta ask because
Everyone needs food. You fucking idiot. Not everybody needs healthcare.
Pisco,
What the fuck
do you
are you
think that
talking
healthcare
about?
is as important
everyone
as
needs
food?
No, I think food is more important than healthcare.
Okay, so you agreed with Connor though. I don't know why you just said
No,
Connor is cooked.
no. Wait, no. You're cooked in that I would consider. I think most people consider in basic human necessity need healthcare as well as food. Not that food is more important. Or
You
less
asked
important.
him which was more important, didn't you? Did I miss that? Hold on, wait. I'm sorry. I'm telling the moderator. Wait, did he ask which one was more important, or did he say
He
we're
asked
both
which is
important?
more important in healthcare.
Thank you. Okay, he
No,
did.
no,
So
no,
you
no,
just
no, no,
totally
no, no, no,
mischaracterized Connor's point there.
No. I
You
said,
did.
is it more of in the sense of is it more of a
You could have
basic,
misspoke.
is it more of a basic human necessity in the sense that it's a separate category of thing, that there are separate categories that food is a basic human necessity in a way that
You don't need
healthcare
to
isn't.
cope. You can just say you
Hold on.
misspoke.
Also, it doesn't. Hold on. Wait. Just to be clear, because you're trying to bail yourself out. It doesn't make sense
No.
what you just said. Is something more of this in a category, or is it just in the category?
No, it makes sense.
Like,
Wait,
is a
wait,
Ford
wait,
Focus
wait.
more of a car?
Let
than
Pisco
understanding it's a
explain.
car?
Hold on,
Doesn't make any
Destiny. Let Pisco explain.
You put out this category.
He fucked up. He realized he said fucking
Okay,
retarded.
hold on,
Now
we
he's
gotta
trying
let
to walk it
Pisco-
back with the word
No, no.
game.
Hold on,
This is
Pisco
all
wants to
weaselness.
walk. Jesse, stop.
This is all
Pisco
weaselness.
wants to
It is
explain
weaselness. I
himself.
agree with that.
Let
We all agree
Pisco
on that.
explain himself.
So
Pisco, go ahead.
when you say the word a basic human necessity, all right, a basic human necessity. In what respect is food a basic human necessity? With respect that healthcare is not. And I'm trying to see what are the metrics by which you assess healthcare to be more of a basic human necessity.
I would like to
as
answer
opposed
this question so it doesn't become a screening match.
Wait, stop. I'm clarifying. No, wait, I'm clarifying. So just because I say something is more important, and I'm going to get Dustin to agree with this, just because something is more important, I consider something to be more important, doesn't mean it's more of a basic human necessity. Yes or no?
Who?
Steven.
You're tripping over your words. You just said again. You said more of a basic human necessity, but you mean to say it doesn't belong to the category of basic human necessity?
Wait, Steven. Is the term basic human necessity and important the same?
No.
Okay, so saying something along the spectrum of basic human necessity and importance, those are different questions,
we're
right?
debating whether or not.
Are they? Wait, Steven, are they different questions or not?
Those are different words. I don't even know what you're asking.
Are they? So is something on the spectrum of basic human
God.
necessity the same spectrum of importance? Because importance can encompass more than just something that's basic human necessity, correct?
It can be more important along the spectrum. Sure.
Okay, so so there's no contradiction, right? Can you identify a contradiction?
No, Beacon Gain, sir. I cannot identify.
Okay. So I don't want to debate whether
it's more important than healthcare, and you said yes. You said
I don't think it's
interesting.
I don't think it's interesting to debate whether or not Pisco got dunked on just now. Okay, I want to go back to what Destiny said previously, which I thought was pretty interesting. So Destiny made the claim that the people that he would look to determine who are the ideological thought leaders of socialists, like people who label themselves as socialists, wouldn't be people necessarily like Bernie Sanders or Mamdani or AOC. Now, I would say this is pretty absurd for a number of reasons, okay? If we look at, hey, when people go and have public events, right? Like, hey, Hasan goes and has a public event. How many people show up? I'd say maybe a few hundred. Maybe he gets into the 1,000 plus club or something. When AOC and Bernie Sanders go out and have an event, thousands of people show up. They can fill stadiums, fill arenas. When people actually go out and express their political views, what are my political views? Millions of people voted for Bernie Sanders. Hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions of people across the country, vote for democratic socialist politicians. And so when we look at democratic socialists and socialist politicians, they are clearly, by ideological standpoint and by their propensity to collaborate within Democratic Party frameworks and electoralism, much different than Hasan and much more emblematic of the standard by which we should judge people who label themselves as socialists in this country.
I would like to address this directly.
Real quick, I got a quick. So hold on. I'm sorry. Why didn't the DSA then endorse AOC?
Because she came out with that vote on for the national DSA. Retracted their vote because of the Iron Dome vote that AOC took.
Seems like kind of a problem.
But that's not a socialist. That's not a socialist.
The DSA is not socialist.
Destiny, you're obfuscating.
It's a bad example.
The point is not.
It's a horrible example.
No. Please go, Destiny. 1 second. The reason I say you're obfuscating is because my point was not that, for instance, within DSA, within all of these different democratic socialist politicians, even within those people, Mamdani is not the same as AOC, and no one DSA member is the same as any other one. Okay,
we're not talking about one DSA member. The national DSA did not endorse AOC, the woman who runs.
They did endorse Mamdani. They did endorse Mamdani. Okay, they did endorse many other democratic socialist candidates. I understand that there is an exception. If I could just finish, I understand that there is an exception to the general rule of democratic socialists, like the organization endorses, different people who call themselves democratic socialists. But that's not an argument against my fundamental point, which is that when we agglomerate all of the people who call themselves socialists and run for parties and have people come out and vote for them and support them, that is a fundamentally different group of people on average by the normal distribution of their beliefs than people like Hasan. And I think that we should judge them by who they vote for more so than by, Hasan, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
Well, Destiny agrees. You agree then. Okay, well then, thank you.
Okay, counterpoints, go ahead.
All right.
I love you, Connor.
Okay. I think what happened with socialism was that if you actually go back to Bernie Sanders in the fucking 80s and the 70s, he was doing apologia for Cuba. He was doing apologia for the Soviet Union. He did apologia for Venezuela in the fucking 90s and thousands. And you know what happened? Each one of those places ended up being absolute fucking shitholes. So what he had to do, shut up, is he had to move to social democratic models in the Scandinavian system and abandon his previous hardcore shit. But there's a question of whether or not social democrats are actually just hiding their power level because they're trying to inculcate a left-wing philosophy I'm not done yet.
Let Connor finish.
Relevant. Shut up. Why is it relevant? This is the entire conversation. The entire conversation is whether or not social democracy
is your conspiracy theory about socialists.
The center left. That's the whole fucking conversation.
Okay, so you're just you're asserting a conspiracy without much evidence. You're just saying, Bernie actually conspiratorially supports things like Cuba and the Soviet Union, and he didn't have any genuine changes of opinion.
Ideas. He might have moved off of hardcore.
Hold on, just real quick. Like the idea.
But Hasan hasn't.
Hold on, just real quick.
The second bot hasn't.
Hold on, stop. The idea that Counterpoints is expressing is that there are leftists who have said explicitly that their goal is to infiltrate the Democratic Party to move it towards leftism. It is not a conspiracy in the sense of it's crazy. It is a conspiracy in the sense that these people have said, this is what we're going to do, this is our goal for doing it, and this is how we're going to do it.
Why is that relevant to our discussion?
It's relevant to the discussion because should we, the Democrats, allow or invite into our house as influencers, invite into our house as staffers, invite into our house as people we will engage with or collaborate with in a friendly way? Should we be doing that when we know that this is their goal?
I'll answer the question directly. So it's only quote unquote a problem insofar as it's aggregately true of the 10% of the Democratic Party base that's actually engaged in that process. Now I understand that that's that we don't have a poll that says how many of you are engaged in this kind of like Manchurian candidate fucking like conspiracy, whatever the fuck, like Connor's describing. But I would say that generally speaking, when I look at the actions of Democratic Socialists who win elections, when I look at the actions of Democratic Socialists and the platforms of them, they don't seem to be secret tankies. Now, I would agree that there are certain people, like people reference Hasan, like Hasan has said, oh, like I want liberals. Well, okay, yeah. Oh, people reference other left-wing alternative media influencers. Oh, sure, okay, like whatever. People reference people like that, and sure, yeah, to the extent that those people have like literally on record said that they're just trying to obfuscate issues and engage in this kind of, like conspiracy or whatever, then I've already said at the very beginning of this debate that people like that probably shouldn't be invited into the inner party and be given platforms in Democratic Party circles. That's obviously true. That's trivially true.
As I understand, the disagreement here is that, and again, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but Destiny and Counterpoints think that you are allowing this to happen. Like you say hang on a second. But they're saying that
the disagreement is all semantic bullshit. Connor, is China a communist country or a socialist country?
Is what?
Is China a socialist country?
Are they moneyless, stateless, or classless?
No, they have class.
No, then they're not.
Okay. Is there any socialist country in the world right now?
I don't think anybody has like.
So who's no true Scotsman? So tell me, who's no true Scotsman?
No. I'll answer your question. No. Don't pretend you have a good point. You don't. Okay. Socialists. This is actually fundamental to my perspective. Socialists are fucking retarded, and they can't implement their worldview. Hold on, and they can't implement their worldview into the real world. So if you look at the 20th century, there's something called vanguard Marxism or Marxist Leninism. And they have these things called vanguard parties that take over countries and turn them into shitholes. And so we have people like Hakeem, Second Thought, Hasan Piker,
The Vanguard.
who tried to sweep this history away. No, I'm telling you the truth. And these are the people
You're just
that I
monologuing,
think
old
that
man.
Econoboy and you are useful idiots for.
No. So under your vision, right? Single payer is not socialist. There's no socialist country. Socialism has never been done.
Because I'm using the definitions that socialists themselves use.
But by the way, like, and I'm sure, Stephen,
Pisco, you think you have a gun, but you have nothing. You're actually speaking from a perspective of ignorance. Go ahead and finish your point. I'll let you finish your point, but I'm going to tell you why you're speaking from a position of ignorance momentarily.
So I just want to acknowledge, Stephen, you acknowledge that what Connor just said is fucking so stupid as to
no,
be.
Pisco, you fucking idiot. You're speaking from a
the
position of
issue-
ignorance.
the
You need
issue
to
is
shut
like,
the fuck up
no,
before you
no,
jump
hold
on
on,
another
hold on.
road, fucking dumbass.
So I'm asking a question to Stephen.
Stop.
Stephen,
You're speaking
Stephen,
from a position of
Stephen,
ignorance.
Stephen, do you
You're
agree?
speaking from a
that-
position
Then let
of
him
ignorance,
demonstrate
Pisco.
that.
Stop.
Let him stop.
Stephen.
Counterpoints. Let him demonstrate it if you think he's
Worst behaved person here, Wick.
None of you
keep
are well behaved.
moderating
You're
me.
all
All
you're
these
all
fucking
you're
arguing
all
for fucking
testing my
30
patience.
goddamn minutes.
Stop.
Keep moderating, Connor. It's
So-
fine.
Stop.
Pisco.
Let
He's
Pisco
arguing
go.
from a position of ignorance.
Okay, then let him demonstrate that. Shut up.
Connor is
Pisco, go.
misbehaving.
Pisco, go.
So
and then
I have a question
you
for
can ask
Stephen.
questions.
Stephen, do you
Pisco
agree? Do you agree with Connor's contention that there's no socialist country currently, and that single payer is not a socialist policy?
Both of those questions
please,
are very
jump on this
complicated. It's hard to
fucking
yes or
rake.
no them. The issue right now that we're having with this conversation is every single conversation that I ever had with a centrist that defended a Nazi, and now it's going to be, I guess, for the next however many years, is every conversation with a center-left socialist or a Demsoc who inevitably will play cover for tankies. The issue is that you guys have come here to defend the proposition that socialists are AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Mamdani. Okay, AOC is not even currently endorsed by the largest socialist movement in the United States. Bernie Sanders causes major contention over his endorsement. All of these people run as Democrats, and you're going to pretend like this is the main voice of the socialist movement in the United States, and you're going to say it, and you're going to say it by talking about policies that they're using to appeal to
Didn't hear an answer. Didn't hear an answer to my question.
Finish my thing. I can't finish.
let him
You're going
finish
to
his
say
thing.
that these
And then I
represent
wanna explain
socialists.
why
Hold
you're
on,
doing
stop.
that.
Let Destiny finish. Go
Holy
ahead,
shit.
Destiny.
You're going to say that these appeal to socialists in the United States because they're doing things that are popular amongst literally all center-left people. And then you're going to say that's an example for why we should try harder to appeal to leftists. When my question earlier is, let's look at the media apparatus. The entire left-wing media apparatus constantly attacks and shits on Democrats. And then you guys, like watching Pisco stumble through, not knowing 50 different terms related to what Hasan talks about on his stream, and play cover for him over and over and over again, whether it's the ridiculous TSA story or whether it's his ridiculous political beliefs that where Pisco pretends not to know what any of these things are, or not to know what, well, re-education camp, isn't that like getting your GED, LOL, right? That's the issue that people have when they look at it and go, okay, every time you come to argue with us about defending socialists, you talk about AOC and Bernie Sanders. But then when you look at the media environment, they're talking about fucking Stalin. That's the issue.
Okay, so I didn't hear an answer to the question, so I'll just ask it again.
Ask it again, and then I want to tell you why you're stupid.
Yeah, well, I want to hear an answer from Steven, so he just fucking filibustered when he's trying to.
Yeah, so you can dodge. Cool.
Do you agree with Connor's contention that there is no socialist country and that single payer is not a socialist policy?
The whole point of this conversation is you're hiding behind the obscurity of what these words mean. It depends. There are some socialists who would say that there are no socialist countries. There are other socialists that would point to
most socialists would say there isn't any
much the
socialist
same that
country.
if I was on a podcast and a conservative influencer said, "What is a woman?" Define it in 3 words. I would say I can't really do that. It's more complicated than that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Pisco, can I tell you why you're confidently ignorant and kind of stupid in this conversation right now? I would like a minute, please.
I'd love to hear it.
So the reason why you're confidently stupid is because vanguard parties want to institute socialism as a stepping stone to communism. But in the early 20th century, Mao Zedong took over China and then he totally fucked it up. He tried to do a command economy where he guaranteed food, water, and shelter, and he tried to do a massive industrialization in the middle of the 20th century. He was so stupid and so wrong that he caused the death of millions, if not tens of millions of people. And so what happened was through the 60s and 70s, they said, hey, Mao, this is kind of a bad idea. Maybe we should maybe we should do some state capitalism first. That way we can do this. And you know what he did? He culturally purged and killed the people that did that until he eventually died. And then Deng Xiaoping intentionally instituted state capitalism, which is where you have a free market hybridized command economy. And by the way, this is mentioned by socialists as a stepping stone to socialism. So you saying what I said is fucking stupid, you don't know dick about history, and you're overly confident for a topic you don't know shit about. So jump on another rake, you fucking dumbass.
Let me explain how Connor is completely wrong about what he just said. Okay?
Oh, suck a dick, Econoboy.
Let Econoboy go ahead. Go ahead, Econoboy.
I don't know what I did.
Let me explain how we're not sweeping for the 20th century socialists. Please do.
So, yeah, let me explain, dumb fuck, okay? Because you're completely wrong about your characterization of socialism, okay? And the history of socialism during that same exact time period. Okay, so, Connor, would you say that there were other socialists on the planet engaged in socialist advocacy at the same time as Mao?
Absolutely.
Okay, so your characterization that Maoism and that the people who followed Mao and the socialist models after that were in reaction to Mao is necessarily wrong because there were concurrent socialist movements to Mao. You understand that, right?
Actually, hold on. I can name half a dozen. Can you name half a dozen?
Dumb fuck! Can you answer that question?
What's your question?
The question is, since there were concurrent socialist movements to Mao, it is necessarily not true that socialist movements that came after were just in response to the Maoist model of socialism.
Okay, I'm going to be a dick because I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to be a dick about it. Yeah, there were concurrent movements, and a majority of them were Marxist-Leninist. They were Pol Pot. They were fucking Soviet Union. So if they're all fucking Marxist-Leninists and Maoism is an iteration of Marxist-Leninism, and if they share similar issues like authoritarianism, centrally planned economies, and dystopian fucking Orwellian nightmare states, then why the fuck do I give a shit about your differentiation?
You're wrong about your empirical claim. The Social Democratic Party of Australia, the Labour Party of the UK, the Social Democratic Party of Germany,
nice
every single one of the wait, 1 second.
The nice ones who slept for the murderous
who didn't do the murder are also socialists. Connor,
socialists? Are they? Is Clement Attlee a socialist?
Hold on. Just because I don't know. Hold on. Stop. I have a question. Stop. Fucking.
Jihadists aren't the same thing.
Stop. Econoboy, it's a question for you. If you shut up, I could ask the question. Econoboy, those the ones you just
Clement
mentioned
Attlee,
in
Australia,
Germany, Australia, did they have control of the government?
Yep.
Nope.
Yes. Clement Attlee had control. Wait, Clement Attlee had a massive.
Were they able to institute a socialist utopia?
Yes,
So,
but I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
Socialist. So this is Connor's position. You're only socialist if you're able to institute a communist utopia.
No.
Hold on. I want to hear the answer.
Can I ask an easy?
Hey, everybody else has been screaming. I'm going to scream too. You're retarded if you're
the moderator, Connor.
The government and the society might save you from yourself. So you might be an inefficacious socialist.
Okay, so
wait, can I ask a simple question that maybe this is like I feel like this is what this whole thing is coming down to, okay? If you were to take 100 people, have them read theory, study history, and then look in a room, okay, and you were to put, we'll say, Hasan Piker and then AOC in a room, and you were to ask them, which one is more of a socialist? What do you think all of those people would say?
I don't know because they would.
I can't even believe. Then this conversation is hopeless. It's such an unbelievable answer to me.
Because to say that is to misunderstand the diversity of the socialist movement and contemporaries
I'm not talking
Marx.
about the diversity of the socialist movement. I'm saying that AOC. Hold on. Is it fair for me to say that AOC is a way more outer perimeter socialist than like
I don't know what you mean by that.
A bog standard? Then
what do you mean by that?
Look up what outer perimeter means.
Let me try. Do you think there are fundamental differences, and what are the fundamental differences between AOC and something like Hassan?
Let's use Stephen's model. Stephen, if you put 100 people in a room and ask them, "Is Bernie Sanders a socialist?" How would they answer? Yes or no?
I honestly don't know.
That's your standard that you just gave. You just said 100 people. You just did that.
You didn't even ask me the same question. I was comparing two different people. I said 100 people well-read on theory. Do you want to say 100 well-read people? If you put 100 people who are well-read on socialist theory and you ask them, is Bernie Sanders a socialist? Zero of them would say yes. No, absolutely. Yes. You're so fucking retarded. No, he's a liberal and he supports capitalism. Definitionally, in every single way, he is not a bog standard socialist. If you want to say he's like an outer perimeter, Dems suck. Maybe, sure, but like a socialist.
Dem what? No. Dem what? What does SOC stand for? Dem what?
Outer perimeter. What does outer perimeter mean? Outer perimeter.
National Socialist.
To answer, because the reason that we got off on this topic was because Connor we haven't really taken the bait of Connor's constant conspiracy baiting about like people are basically all just synchrotankies that are socialists, right? But I think that it's important to address.
No, I think you guys are useful idiots. I think there's other
so Connor, you actually completely conceded that you had a complete incomplete complete understanding of socialist history. You asked a question that I wasn't able to answer.
Absolutely not.
No,
You said, "Oh,
you
hold on. You asked me a
did.
question, so I'm going to answer it."
I didn't ask you a question.
I brought
what are
up.
you talking about?
Yeah, you said, "Are you going to concede that you have a completely?"
No, I said you
incomplete,
conceded. It wasn't
version
in a
of history?
question
No, I
form.
don't concede at all. You brought
No,
up
that
Western
wasn't a question, just
socialists
to be
who
clear.
were you mentioned Western socialists who
I didn't
were
ask you a
under the
question.
control of Western governments.
So just to be
Fuck
clear,
you.
when the Western government is controlled by socialists, it's a socialist government. That's how elections work.
Hold
okay?
on.
No,
You take
it's
power. You take
No, it's
power,
not.
and you
Trump
take
is
power.
a fascist. Is the
hold on,
current American government
Stop.
fascist?
Econoboy. If today we replace
save him from
Trump,
getting raped.
hold on. If we replace Trump with pick a socialist that you think is a good socialist, would the American, just because now our president identifies as a socialist, does that make America a socialist country now?
So I'm not saying that these countries.
I'm asking you a
became
question, yes or
socialist.
no?
I'm literally answering
It's not
directly your question, Wick. You gave me like one word before you interrupted me. Okay,
So annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Destiny, I haven't been the one interrupting you for the most part.
No, I know.
But
But you're giving cover to the guy who is, which is kind of what this whole combo is about.
That's true. That's true. And Pisco is
Okay,
irritating.
I want to hear the answer to your question. The question.
no.
Go ahead, Econoboy.
I'm not saying that these countries became socialist because they had socialist governments. I'm saying they had socialist governments for many points of time in their history.
Okay.
Now,
Let
Connor.
me change
now,
my question because you
if I could
hold on.
please
I got to change my
God.
question now. Again, if we simply take Trump out and put a socialist in, is America run by a socialist government now?
Oh,
We would have
Obviously
a-
not.
Oh yeah,
You just
wait,
got
wait, wait.
raped by it.
It's run by social government can be a reference to the party in power. So, for example,
Okay.
like Clement Attlee was he's a socialist government in the sense that they're in
Now-
charge.
Oh, so
of,
is
the only reason-
Zoltan Ramaswamy
Zoran.
is
Okay.
New York City fucking
Racist meme.
socialist
Nice
because
racist
he's the
meme.
mayor now?
nice racist.
Okay,
No. But
so-
when you ask the question, is the
Why is
government
that
of the day
racist?
socialist? If he said,
Yeah.
Zoltan
So
Ram-
is New
wait,
York
Who's
City
playing
socialist
semantics
because
now? Holy
Zoltan
shit.
Ramaswamy-
wait. Can we just? Well, why don't
I
we
still
just
haven't had a
rant?
chance to finish my point.
Oh, you're about to
So,
get owned again, so you're running
Wait.
away. Got it.
So,
Oh my God.
so I'm trying to clarify terminology, and you don't want to do that. So, like, what people refer to the government, meaning the people in charge of the government, it's a socialist government, doesn't necessarily mean that the structure itself is socialist.
Okay, but we all
I'm just
understand.
telling you
distinction.
why
Okay,
there's
so
different meanings of the word government.
The reason why I bring up all of the dozens and dozens and dozens of different labor governments and social democratic and fundamentally socialist governments that have existed in all of these different countries and Europe and Oceania and a lot of Latin American countries as well is because at the same time that Connor says socialism is like essentially fundamentally in some conspiratorial sense an authoritarian ideology with authoritarian ideals that will do authoritarianism and kill millions of people. Concurrently to the very same things that Connor was describing, you had socialist governments take power through democratic elections, convincing people
And
to
they
vote
get
for them,
moderated by the Constitution.
running on socialist platforms, being in charge of the
And
militaries,
being moderated
and-
by the
and,
monarchy.
hey, Connor,
and being
when you're in
moderated by the
charge-
Let Econoboy finish,
representatives.
please. Yeah.
Can I finish the point? Can I we've
Yeah,
been
sure,
trying,
you're
I've been
just
trying for
wrong,
20
but
fucking
yeah, sure,
minutes.
go ahead, finish the point.
Okay, so when the socialist government is now in charge of the police apparatus and the military and all of that stuff, when they lose the next election, what did they do across all of these different countries? They left power and there was a turnover in government. So your idea that basically every socialist movement is stamped with the authoritarianism of Mao is completely ahistorical, Connor.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm
Why don't
curious
we
on
just
that.
move past this?
Wait, for a
It's
counterpoint.
a
Wait, for a
destiny
counterpoint.
thing.
Would you consider Trump an authoritarian, even though he gave up power and will probably give up power at the end of this admin? Maybe.
Yes.
He's an authoritarian, and we have right now the U.S. government is like authoritarian in stature. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I just
don't
as
have
a
a
quick thing,
problem saying
it feels a little silly to say like we were talking about socialist countries, but now we switch to socialist governments, and then it's like you open up and look inside, and it's just
We weren't
liberalism,
talking about
capitalism, right?
socialist government. We weren't talking
Okay,
about
well, I
socialist
think that was
countries.
probably
Why
what
don't we
Connor's
just
impression was.
branch
And that's what,
out
wait,
that
but okay, hold on. Also, wait, but you talked about like what socialism is, and you made it sound like this spooky thing of authoritarianism and all this. Would you concede that like a central tenet of socialism is the overthrow of the capital class, oftentimes via violent revolution? That is like a central tenet
Oftentimes?
of socialism. No,
So
that's not
I would-
oftentimes. Like ideologically, definitionally, like in capitalism, you have private ownership where individuals can own firms and hire employees and scrape whatever
So
excess.
similar
surplus- yeah.
I'll answer your question directly. Okay, so I would compare the question that you just asked similar to the development and emergence of liberalism. Liberalism developed and emerged across the planet, across different stages of development, across different points in time, and it did so in sometimes very violent ways and in sometimes through legislative reform. And so similar, you say, hey, I was just going to say, you say, hey, an ideal of socialism is the abolition of private property, to which I would say, generally speaking, certainly that's a core tenet of almost every socialist thinker across the history of socialism. But that is not a statement on the method by which we get to that final end state. The method is up for debate, and it has been debated, and many different methods have been used by socialists.
Okay, sure. So just following this like very briefly, in what world is there ever a peaceful revolution where all of capital is abolished?
So, what are you talking about? There's. You can imagine. Could you conceive of a
Is it
world?
logically possible?
Let me just ask you this: could you conceive of a world where the means of production are entirely collectively owned? Could you conceive of that?
I could conceive of that. Yes.
Okay. So, and people have said worker cooperatives, national industry, things like that. So we know that things like worker cooperatives and things like national industries and things like state services do exist, and we know that they've come into existence. They've come into being with democratic frameworks and liberal democratic sort of processes.
Sure. So far, none of this is responsive to what I asked. So I'm saying, how would we abolish all private property without violence?
So what I would say is that we would in this theory, we could abolish private property through the same exact means by which we've socialized property in the currently existing world, through the ballot box, through democratic initiative.
Do you agree it's logically possible? Stephen, do you agree it's logically possible?
This isn't a debate on veganism, and we're not talking about what's logically possible. That's not relevant to the conversation.
Why don't you just grant it? Then why don't you just grant it? Then why don't you just grant it? Then why don't you just grant it?
TikTok clips.
Wait. Then why don't you just grant it?
The issue with saying that we've socialized some things is we're not doing that because we want socialism. We're doing that because we recognize it as a failure of capitalism to succeed in some particular area. But if you want to move to a fully socialist state of affairs, it seems like that would necessitate, according to what almost all socialists will tell you in good faith, will require some form of violence, right? Because what do they say constantly? Cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds. When the revolution comes, liberals will side with fascists. These are statements that almost every single socialist I've seen, everybody in the media, almost all socialists will say this, right? So in that case, doesn't having this socialist concept in mind necessitate some future revolution?
Violence. Why don't you make the case that it entails violence?
I literally just did.
Yeah,
Capital owners never give up willingly their property, meaning they will always fight violently to defend it. This is why socialists say things like the institution of policing exists only to defend capital interests. I can walk you through Babby's first day of social media if you want. I really want me to, but I think Econoboi should have an answer.
So if what you mean is violence is entailed by the use of the police force, if that's what you mean by violence, and enforcing these restrictions would require like enforcement, then I guess it would entail violence. But that's not the violence that you're talking about. You're equivocating violence. What you mean by violence?
I'm not equivocating. You don't understand when I say the police is a violent institution. You don't know what that means.
Would you agree? Wait. Would you agree? Would you agree, Stephen?
Hold on. Stop. I don't want to mute, but again,
you're such a bitch.
Destiny did ask a question. I do want that question answered, Pisco. He asked you, do you understand what he means when he says, well, repeat your question real quick, Destiny.
When socialists view police as a violent institution, what do they mean when they say that?
Okay, go ahead.
I think that socialists, I think that socialists and libertarian oftentimes believe that it entails violence because they're enacting violence. But
I'm so sorry.
At the end of it, wait, Stephen.
Whatever you say here is irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Wait, Stephen. So I'm just going to ask you a question. Does capitalism require violence in the same way?
I don't know. I'm not confident.
Does it require violence?
Does it require
violence? Wait, does it require violence? Yes or no?
Yes.
No, not necessarily. No.
Wait.
Violence? No, it doesn't. No.
Wait. Doesn't
enforcing private property requires violence? Law enforcement is necessarily violent.
No, not necessarily. I don't know. You're asking the most simple question in the world. Is me owning a Red Bull, does that require violence? Not necessarily. But if you're saying you got to be able to call the cops and
wait, Stephen, just relax. Does the widespread establishment of a capitalist system in America require violence?
Violence. Define violence. What do you mean by violence?
Violence meaning the use of force to defend property rights.
Am I muted? Yes, you have to defend private property.
So do you agree with Connor? You agree with Connor, don't you, Stephen?
Not really. It's like
so you don't agree with Connor.
Let me know when I can talk for 30 seconds.
Do you know why he doesn't want to agree with you? He doesn't want to agree with you because he thinks that you're making them morally equivalent, and the violence that's necessary to enforce private property rights is not the same violence that's required.
Let's not. Everyone is doing this thing.
From everyone.
Okay, everyone's doing this thing where they're trying to tell like everyone else what their they're saying like Counterpoints, well, Destiny's saying this, and then Destiny will be saying
True.
Econoboy
Although
saying
actually,
this.
I will say Connor was correct though. They're like those are different types of violence. So, for instance, when you talk about does capitalism necessitate violence, and then you want me to say yes to that, well, that's the same type of violence that any country, socialists included, would necessitate, which is the ability to enforce laws or whatever. But that's different. But that's different than a violence that is necessitated ideologically to prevent things like, say, free enterprise or private corporations, which is the type of violence that socialism would necessitate, but capitalism wouldn't necessitate. That's why I'm saying, what kind of violence do you mean?
Why is it interesting? So why is it interesting?
No. So Pisco, 1 second. So Destiny. So I disagree that there's a distinction in the type of violence that we're talking about here. So, for instance, what I mean by that is that insofar
You
as
would.
Based.
Okay, so
It's a panel. If you don't want to throw elbows on a panel, don't join a panel.
I just wanted.
You're
I
a
just
vandal
wanted
that you were brought on to fucking muddy the water. That's why
let
you're
it
here.
sit for a little bit. I thought.
No,
it was
I'm
funny.
not.
Hold
I've been
on.
very
Yeah.
clear, and I got
Hold on,
questions,
no,
Pisco.
stop.
Jumped on
Counterpoints
three
was
ranks so
brought
far
on
today.
because the guy I asked initially declined.
I thought I had
Right?
a good point.
So Counterpoints is here to kind of balance the
well,
scales a little
fuck
bit.
you too,
Okay,
Rick, for
so-
saying that I'm your second date. Jesus.
That's true.
It's okay. I still love you.
but-
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't think it's different Destiny, okay? Because, for instance, if you were to say, hey, like, necessarily, if you were to achieve the socialist ideal, that requires violence. Insofar as what we're talking about is a reestablishment of what property rights means, right? So, for instance, if we were to say, like, oh, we did Econoboy with socialism characteristics, we got 90% of the way here, and now the socialists are in power, and they're going to go the full 100. They're going to say, hey, everything that's currently privately owned has to be sold to
Hold
the
on, you're
rest
playing.
of the holding.
Wait, but you just got.
I feel like I didn't even get to the...
No,
get some
because you
water.
wait, hold on, because you just skipped all the hard part. If you're going to tell me that how do we go from 90% public ownership to 100% public ownership, that's not very hard to do. You have a majority stake in every single company in the entire country. The question is, how do you get to 90% without expropriation?
Okay, so you get to, okay, first of all, I'll just say this briefly. If that's the harder part, then it's surprisingly achievable. Norway has literally already socialized 2/3 of their nation's wealth. They already like have collectivized 2/3 of
What
the
about
national
their
wealth.
firms?
Now,
Wealth is not. Wait, wealth is. Why did you say that? I can't tell if you're being intentional
only
now. Hold
reason-
on.
so I can answer your question
Socializing
directly.
Wealth. My question very specifically was, how do you do it without expropriation? To
I
have
use Norway as an
90%
example.
owned firms.
You had a use Norway
No,
as an
but you
example.
talked
You had
about
a problem.
wealth. I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking
Okay.
about firms.
The reason why so a lot of the firms in Norway are still privately owned because Norway doesn't have as developed a capital market as the United States. So shockingly, if the United States had Nordic institutions for collectivizing wealth, we would be much more able to socialize our domestic economy than those economies because a lot of the companies in production in those societies aren't traded on liquid stock markets. Now,
Hold on,
to your
wait. For
point-
Norway, I'm just asking for Norway. If you said of the 90% of the wealth that's publicly owned, how much of that is just tied to their
2/3.
oil? Okay, so
the-
wait.
so
What you
if I
just
could
said was a
who the
total
fuck
lie, right?
cares?
I
What you
want to
just
answer
said
your
was-
question.
Who the fuck
Because
cares?
controlling 90% of a broad market that's invested across a whole separation of multitudes of industries is way different than just socializing your means of energy
way-
production.
No, that's not what Norway. You have a misunderstanding of how these institutions work, and you have such strong opinions on them, and it really it pisses me off at a certain point. You don't know what you're talking about, but you have these very strong opinions. Norway, yes, a lot of the wealth that they've accumulated doesn't necessarily come from their oil wealth. It comes from the returns to their oil wealth being socialized in a public fashion. Okay, so I would agree that one of the prerequisites to Norway's specific success is its oil wealth. But America is a resource-rich country. America has a huge amount of land rents that we could socialize. America has things like a central bank that can create money, debt financing, other tax revenue. The financing for this is just not a question. America is a richer society than Norway. We have more
Financing
money
is
to move
not
around.
hard, Econoboy.
So
That's why I'm asking about expropriation. The United States government could. I'm not
No, but
retarded.
that's-
You know I'm not retarded. They could print off however much money they want.
Why
to
don't
buy
we
it.
just
That's why I'm
grant-
saying. That's why I'm saying we could get to 90%
Why are we
without
talking about this?
expropriation because we have such liquid markets where people are willing to sell their shares for essentially the strike price. And really quick though,
finish your point, but then I want to get us back on track.
Yeah,
maybe. Finish your
we-
point.
America.
We're getting bogged down. Essentially, my main point, skipping past all of that, is that Destiny made the claim that it necessitates violence. Now, insofar as going from if whatever percentage of voluntary transactions we could get up to, 60, 70, 80, 90%, whatever, And then we have to go to the rest of the way with some amount of expropriation. Yeah, you'd have to pass a bill and reestablish some property rights, and you'd have to buy out those businesses.
This is such a
or something
weasel.
like
Reestablish some property
Taxation
rights.
is
You'd have to
expropriation
steal
by
property
definition.
from private owners.
I can't make the point. Go.
No, because you're speaking in like the most like wish.
Let's move
Like,
on.
you'd have to reestablish some
let's
property rights.
just
You'd
move
have to steal all the firms from all the
Wick
private
said
owners.
he wanted to do another debate about this specific.
Yeah, we can make a one-on-one or something.
okay.
But
So
for
the
now,
question
just
also-
real quick. For now, I do have a question, maybe to kind of take us on a track that I'm interested in, right?
Wait, Wick, just hold on a second. Why don't we grant that socialism only means what Stephen means and what Connor means? So let's put aside the semantic. So if what you mean is by socialist are specifically Marxist-Leninists who wants to do this mass expropriation, then agreed. Then agreed. They shouldn't be in the halls of democratic power. Where's our disagreement?
Okay. No. Hold on. This is another problem between liberals and progressives, and I'll be very calm while I articulate this. My frustration with Econoboy is that expropriation is defined necessarily. Don't fucking touch your
Hey,
nose.
hold on.
and
Moving off
close
of
your
that.
Hold on,
eyeball.
We're
hold
moving
on.
off of that.
Let counter.
I'm
Just let
on your
Counter go.
panel, you bitch. I can talk when I fucking feel like it. This isn't the Pisco and Destiny hour, you fucking dickhead. So, the definition of expropriation is the action by the state or an authority of taking property from its owner for public use or benefit. Taxation is necessarily, definitionally, expropriation. So what we're saying is that, or at least what I'm saying, is that I believe a fucking free market needs to have a balance between the expropriation of property for the public good and the private market allowed to do its own thing. A private market is necessary to generate the wealth in order to create a welfare state. So if Econoboy is saying, well, we can just go ahead and command slowly through the government voting in, increasing control over public utilities and the parts of the market, then I don't care if it's done democratically. I don't give a fuck.
Okay,
Fuck
nice take.
that. I'm going to vote against you, and you're
nice
not
take.
part of my team.
Okay, nice take. If what you mean by socialism
my team.
is if what you mean by socialism is only those people who espouse these Marxist-Leninist ideas that you find to be odious.
Nope. I've defined it for you 7 times.
wait,
It's
so
let
commodification
Pisco
of
finish.
basic need
Let
and workers
Pisco-
owning the means of
hold on,
production.
let
You can
Pisco
get it through
finish.
democracy.
Hold-
You can get
okay.
it through democracy. That
Counterpoints.
doesn't make it good.
You gotta let Pisco
So-
finish. Pisco
so
finish, and then I have a question.
Let's get through the semantic bullshit. If what you mean is
It's
that
not semantic. I've given you a specific definition
Okay.
7 times.
Counterpoints. You gotta let him at least finish a sentence.
Then he needs to listen to what I'm saying
if
and
he is
represent
not
it
listening to what you're saying, it
accurately.
will be
He's a
apparent
vandal.
in what he says.
yeah.
Represent it accurately.
So we have a semantic difference. I'm trying to chart that out. Like
No, we don't.
We literally do. When I say semantic difference,
So you disagree that socialism is a decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production?
Yep.
so I don't. I think socialism
then you're
means
done.
much. Wait. I think socialism means much more than that because for me, use
Okay,
is meaning.
that's a good.
right?
Hold on.
Wait,
Hold on. That's
holy
actually
shit, Nick.
excellent point. Pisco, what do you mean when you say socialism? Be specific.
So what? So I think when I see things
just means
socialism.
hugs.
Wait. When I think socialism as at its broadest, I understand socialism to be workers owning the means of production. That's at its broadest. I think that there's a lot of shades of gray there, and socialism doesn't just mean what Connor means. And the reason that is, I think that meaning, right, that of a word is its use, right? Like if what we mean by a word is there's no like correct objective answer to what socialism means. My theory of like what words mean is how they're used by people in the real day. There's multiple definitions, but if
Then
what you
Destiny is right that
Oh
AOC,
my
Bernie Sanders, and Zodan Salami are not socialists because they don't believe in workers owning the means of production.
when you say Destiny is quote unquote right, what do you mean by that?
I just
You mean
said it.
He's right according to his own definition and your definition.
AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Zoltan Manslami don't fucking advocate for workers owning the means of production. So by the definition that you just provided for us, they are not socialists. Which is kind of silly.
I said at its broadest, it's workers owning the means of production, but means of production. And I
What
think
does
that they
broadest mean?
Broadest means it includes the most amount of people. So if your broadest
Yes.
So if
definition
they
does not
identify as a
include those
socialist,
people,
wouldn't they necessarily need to follow under your definition?
Connor,
This is
shut
like the fourth rake.
Connor, shut the fuck up. What I'm trying to chart
Then
out.
make your words make sense.
let Pisco go.
I'm trying to chart out a semantic difference. Do you understand what I mean when I say a semantic difference? With the
Having to do with words.
and their meaning. Okay, so in your version of the word socialism, you would not ascribe for example, single payer to be a socialist policy. You wouldn't say that someone like Bernie Sanders is a socialist. You wouldn't say that China, as it currently exists, is a socialist country, because your definition of socialism is much more narrow. I say, let's get past that semantic difference. I think, like, in terms of how people use the word socialist, you guys are just wrong in terms of the usage of the word. But let's get past that. If what you mean. Why?
I will not get past that.
We just spent this whole time arguing about what the right definition of socialism is.
I'm going to throw it back on the plate because you're going to circle you both are going to circle the drain again.
I'm right. You're wrong.
Hold on. Stop. We are going to get to a more, I think,
disagreement. So you're using it. I think that you guys have a proprietary definition. I think you guys have a proprietary definition of the word socialist that isn't how people use the word, and it's not charted in.
Before we move on, I want to articulate why this is important. I think that you, in Econoboy, are, I'll be rude, even though I love you, I think you are useful cock sleeves for tankies. And so you're trying to expand the definition of socialism to mean nice, redistributive social services.
Sorry.
So I don't like it when you do that. And I disagree with you.
You're here to give cover to Stephen, and that's fine. But I just want to be very clear about what
cover has been given. I've argued with you directly.
You're trying to make the conversation. You're trying to make the conversation impossible. You're making the conversation impossible.
I've contended with every single argument that you've given me.
You're making the conversation. You're making the conversation impossible.
I'm gonna.
Wick, please.
Pisco is going to finish. He's going to finish his point. He's going to ask his question, and then we're going to see if it goes anywhere. And if it doesn't, I have productive ways we can go. But counterpoints, hold on real quick. Counterpoints, if you can't control yourself, you will be controlled. Okay? I will mute you. Pisco, go ahead.
I thought this was a panel.
It is a panel, but I will mute you.
When I'm talking about the meaning of a word, I'm really just asking what the ordinary usage of the word is. Like, in terms of what the definition ought to be, if there's any ought to what a word is, it's like, well, how do people use the word, right? So that's what I take to be a semantic difference. And you saying you have a vision of the usage of that word, socialist, which is much more narrow than my conception of how that word is used by ordinary people. But we can put aside that, right? Like, let's put aside this semantic difference about what words ought to mean or what they actually are in any objective sense, and let's just get to the meat of it. If what you mean by socialist doesn't include AOC, doesn't include Bernie and their policies, doesn't include what I think most people would take to be socialist policies, and it only includes people like Marxists, Leninists, and Maoists, then then what's the disagreement? They shouldn't be included.
Disagreement. You asked a question, I'm going to answer it. I feel like I am using a narrow and tailored definition because I think that the people who self-identify as that and actually have read the text related to the ideology, that's how they self-identify. And I think that they are using progressives and liberals and social democrats, and they're conflating these terms back and forth so they can expand at which point they are relevant in the modern social parlance. And I believe that you and Econoboy are helping them, and I don't like it, which is why I'm here to tell you I don't like it.
Connor just keeps Connor, you keep doing this. You keep just asserting that there's some sort of conspiracy broadly within people who identify as socialists to try and sort of co-opt liberal frameworks. And when I point out
Econoboy, you said that
1 millionth time, so I haven't just said that because I was about to finish the point. I haven't just said that 5 times. I've included an explanation of the history of a huge range of different democratic, liberal, socialist movements over time that weren't just pretending until they got power and then they would become authoritarian Maoists.
Context.
In fact, they were just Democrats, it turned out.
Okay.
And you keep ignoring that and then reasserting without any backing your conspiracy about the broad 10% of the base of the Democratic Party socialist movement.
Stop, Econoboy. The problem here, right, is that they say that they're doing this. That there is a broad members of American socialist people who live in America,
a very small minority of them say that.
Again, who state
I would also like
that they are doing this.
And
they call themselves the Vanguard. Why do you think they call themselves the Vanguard, Econoboy? Why do you think they chose that name?
And every single person on this panel said, to the extent that there's evidence that people are doing that, they should not be included in the movement.
So you are condemning specifically the Vanguard today.
Wait, okay. Hang on. So
I want to be specific.
I want to be clear about it. So the Vanguard.
Shut up, Pisco. I'm asking Econoboy. Today On my
the
show,
Vanguard say?
you are
What did the Vanguard
condemning specifically the Vanguard.
What did
What'd
they
they
say?
do?
Okay.
I don't know what they said. Reference it.
Okay. So first of all, one clue is in the name, the Vanguard.
No,
and we
what
talk
did they
about,
do? Or what's the
What did they
evidence?
say?
What did
What's
they
their
say?
position?
I'm giving you evidence, right?
Like with Hasan, there's evidence that he literally says he just wants to co-opt democratic frameworks. Like
Correct.
he's literally said this, right? So that's pretty
How
good
about the
evidence.
tweet today or yesterday calling Pete a rat, or that he looks like a rat, or that he
Yes.
reminds him of a rat, or whatever?
Is that evidence that he is trying to institute a authoritarian
It
communism?
could just be mean.
Wait.
What is
no.
acceptable evidence that somebody's trying to institute authoritarian communism if they work in the media?
Wait. Statements like Hasan gave, correct?
So they've done shows about ignoring the Constitution and ignoring the Supreme Court, dissolving the Supreme
I haven't
Court.
seen that.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
then how? I'm telling you right
So
now.
to the extent that they have those beliefs, and to the extent that to the extent that
And
they
they
have
call
those
themselves
beliefs,
the Vanguard for a
wait,
reason.
to the extent
It's like
that-
if I
wait,
called
wait,
myself
I'm
the
just-
Grapist.
Wait, let me give you what you want. First of all, the rapist, really?
The Grapist, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Rapist.
yes for an answer.
So if they have the position that we should ignore the Constitution, if they have the position that we should, ignore democratic systems and get rid of all that stuff, then no, they should not be part of a quote unquote coalition. And if what you mean by be part of a coalition is be at the halls of power, design policy, that kind of stuff. If the prescription is don't talk to them, I think that's a different kind of thing, right? I don't think is anyone here saying that we shouldn't
I'm not
talk to them?
describing
Okay,
don't
all
talk
right,
to them.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So to the extent that they have these positions, to the extent that they're crypto about their authoritarianism tendencies, there's no disagreement. They shouldn't be a part of the quote unquote coalition. If what you mean by that,
It's deeper than
what's the
that.
disagreement?
Can I? Okay, here. Okay, you know what? This is what this feels like. This is why it's such a crazy conversation. Okay, if you have two groups of friends, and people in one group really likes Chinese food, and the other group really likes Indian food, and you're trying to vote on where to go to eat. Okay, every weekend. All right, and you have this new group of people who show up, and they say, "I really like wings," and that's the only fucking thing that they ever say about your Chinese food that they like. But you include them in your group of friends who are voting to say, "I want to go eat Chinese food," because they only show up for the wings. But you know that when they go back to their own group of friends, they say, "As soon as we have enough wing voters, we're going to go to the fucking pizza place." That's the issue that we're running into here. Is you're pretending like these guys who only like wings are supporting your entire Chinese food weekly outing, when in reality they're just trying to build up enough people, and they've
No
all
one's pretending
blatantly said
anything.
this, so that they have enough people
Yes,
to
they
go
are.
to the pizza place next week. That's the issue that is
just to
what's
respond
happening.
to that briefly, okay, and I think I can speak for Pisco on this as well, that my point is that is true with the great minority of people that call themselves socialists.
And I understand.
Desi,
Hold on,
I
stop,
know
no,
you're
no,
going to
stop.
say
No,
the
I know
media
what you're
figure. You're going to say the media
no,
figures.
you're going to say yes, and you're going to say that of all the voters or whatever. I'm talking about the entire media apparatus. That's why earlier I asked you, can you give me a single person in the media apparatus that identifies as socialist that also supports the Democratic Party?
But then Destiny, okay, so to address your point extremely directly
you
about
answer
the
his
entire
question?
socialist, Wick.
Oh,
I was
he just
about
asked for
to answer
one
question.
individual.
No, he said that's why I asked you, but I'm addressing his actual point,
Well,
which was
I
about
want
the
you
media
to
apparatus.
answer if you can.
You want
answer
a
the
separate
question.
question, not Destiny's question.
I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
It's
that's a
probably
fair
the
answer.
case
Wait,
that almost
isn't that
everyone.
problematic? If you're
No,
now
Destiny,
identifying as a
yes,
socialist,
it
you can't
is.
think of
That's
a
a different
single.
point. That's a different
no,
point.
it's the same question that I asked earlier, and it's central to the point that I just gave right now. I asked you for a single person that says they actually like Chinese food, and all you can give me are people who support $15 minimum wage or wings,
Destiny.
who really want to go to the pizza
So-
place, which is have the Vanguard Party, which is why they're called the Vanguard, which is why they shit on Chinese food or
if
the
we're
Democratic Party
talking-
over and over and over again, and that's an issue.
If we're talking about media figures who call themselves socialists, in terms of of them who sims for the Democratic Party, it's certainly not a long list to the extent that I could Google and find names right now for you. But so I would agree with that. And so I've already said, and everyone on this podcast seems to be in agreement, that to the extent that many people, and it is a problem, flatly, it is what you're describing is absolutely a problem. To the extent that people in the media space that do that, do the exact things that you and Connor and Wick have referenced, Pisco and I are in complete agreement. It's not that we just disagree. It's that we are in complete agreement that these are not people who should be part of the inner party, who should be part of strategic discussions, who should be part of the messaging of Democrats. What I have said, and this is my last sentence before I guess Connor wants to go, is that people like this should simply be used as other platforms for Democrats to engage in for the purposes of fundraising, for the purposes of spreading their message. If Democrats want to go on Hasan's show or the Vanguard or Brianna Joy Gray or fucking Kyle and Crystal show, then that they should do that because they should engage in these alternative media species.
Sure, but you
they
understand
aren't
that-
part of the inner party.
Sure, but you understand that it undermines the fuck. Wait. You understand that it undermines the fuck out of the Democratic Party if we're saying that all the good things that we support, I call myself a socialist, and I think all the good things that have come from the Democratic Party have come because of socialists. And also, all of the media people that call themselves socialists fucking hate Democrats, and they constantly attack the
You
Democratic
agree with
Party.
the Econoboy?
It's not that simple, bro. I know you really like the yes or
do you
no's, but it's
agree
not
with
really that
Econoboy?
simple. It's not
Do you
that
agree with
simple.
No, I don't.
So to Destiny's question,
I
to
don't
your
agree with
question,
you, Econoboy.
Destiny. So to your question, Destiny, I do fully agree that it is a problem that there is a disconnect between the typical socialist politician and the typical socialist media figure. I do agree that that's a problem. Okay. The only thing that started this entire discourse for the last week was what I said was, I just don't think that these alternative media, socialist media figures have that much of an effect on electoral outcomes for democratic socialists and for liberals broadly. Okay, and I think that we can generally.
What is the? Can I ask you then? Like, so when you look at like the 40-point drop in say like Dearborn supporting the Democratic candidate, do you really think that none of these alternative media spheres have any influence whatsoever on? Are they just completely irrelevant, or?
I would never say something so stupid as they don't have any influence or that they don't have some determination of the outcome of elections. Okay, I would never say that. When it comes to Dearborn specifically, I think that it is more sensible to say several things. Number one, I would say that generally speaking, it seems like a lot of Muslim immigrants revert to their not revert, but like there's like a coming to the mean of the average American conservative view over time as they assimilate. You see that with other immigrants groups as well as Muslim Americans. Number two, I think that you see that with Muslim Americans specifically, they are particularly sensitive to the Israel-Palestine issue, and whoever was in government, it blew the fuck up during a Democratic administration, and so there was a lot of reactionary sentiment with that issue in a lot of Muslim communities. I think generally explains
that reaction. Sure, but two things. One, so you said that it was a problem. I'm not going for gotchas here, okay? I don't give a fuck about gotchas. I know Pisco wasn't, but I'm not looking for gotchas.
It's not a gotcha.
Yeah. But the issue is that all of these elections are so close. So if we agree that it is a problem, and then we talk about how I don't know, or never mind, that was edgy.
Wait, do we have a disagreement?
I don't think that they reverted. Wait. I don't think that they reverted to the mean in one election cycle when it came to voting issues. Okay, I think that if you want to say that they voted because they were super energized by the Israel-Palestine issue, it doesn't make sense to me that they would vote for Jill Stein. Because if you really cared about that issue, I think that the clear choice, even if you think they don't handle it as well, would have been the Democrat candidate over the Republican candidate. So the fact that there were so many people, but the fact that there were so many people in the center left saying, or not center left, but so many people in the left-wing media apparatus all saying they're both the same, all protesting the DNC, all protesting all the Democratic candidates. Isn't that a problem?
I think
we agree it's a problem. Wait, stop. Why does he keep repeating, is it a problem? You just heard Econoboys and I agree, it's a problem. Why did you repeat that at the end?
Well, because if it's a problem, then I don't know if we should be trying to appeal to the socialists, which is the name of this panel, appealing to leftists. We should be trying to court them if they're actively attacking the party, and these elections are already so close, and they're already turning off so many of our voters already. This is just it's on the polls only.
Okay, this is why I wanted to ask the question earlier, because I think this gets to the heart of the matter. It goes us back on track. And this is a question to Pisco first, and Econoboy,
that was directly relevant.
This is a question to your
Dusty
side, and then a
up.
question to the other side. I will counterpoints. I will get to you. I promise. But I'm going to
when he behaves himself, when he puts his hand up, you yell at him, and when he yells, you yell at him.
He can have it.
I'm
not yelling at him.
You're not reinforcing good behavior on this panel.
Let me fucking get my point out, okay? Then maybe we can get to something, okay? The question becomes, who should, as a whole, the Democratic Party, the DNC, etc., who should they be aligning themselves more with? People like AOC or people like Josh Shapiro?
Yeah, I don't understand how that is related to what Stephen was just talking about, right? So we agree. So I thought
he was considered a circuit breaker question.
I'll answer the question directly. So to answer the question directly, I think that because socialists are about 10% of the Democratic base, generally speaking, the platform and the types of candidates that we put forward should probably tilt moderate if the only thing we care about is absolutely maximizing our vote share. Okay,
and winning elections. Fair enough. Okay.
Now I'll say two things. I'll say that that's not necessarily always the literal only thing that we would care about. Now, it's obviously very, very important, but then number two, just because they're only 10% does not mean that we should completely ignore them or treat them as Nazis or completely ostracize them from the movement, that they have to also be appealed to, because the Democratic Party is a party of centrists, moderates, like what you could call like moderate tilt left people, slightly more tilt left people, progressive people, and socialists. Every
we can
single one of those
demonstrate-
groups needs to be
Sure.
represented.
If we can demonstrate that by excising or
What do you mean by that, excising? What do you mean?
What
do you mean by that?
I'll explain once I ask
I
a
need to
question.
keep it
Right?
Well, wait. Okay, wait, hold on. I love you, but we're the two that are debating this topic, right? So
Go ahead.
Wig might have his feeling of it. When I say excise, we're talking about the media environment. If you call yourself a socialist and you constantly shit on the Democratic Party, Pisco, now I'm happy that your messaging evolved on this. Yesterday, you were saying you should go on places like Hassan Stream to fight with them. Sure, that's fine. I agree with that. Nobody, I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Wait. You just started something changed. What changed? What changed?
That
You think I
before
was a
it seemed,
before?
that before it seemed like you were a lot more lukewarm on whether or not Hassan is like kind of an ally or whether or not those types of people can be appealed to.
No. You find me one place where I said Hassan is an ally. You can't.
Yeah,
I never said
I'll go
that.
back
You
through
agree?
I'll comb through your entire vibe.
I don't know, 'cause
I don't
my
know.
position is-
Listen, the
wait,
same,
let me
the same
say
way
it.
that you've been in this
Fuck
space
Hassan.
for 2 years and you can't remember a single thing Hassan has apparently said, I'll say I don't have your exact quote here, okay? But
Yeah,
all
yeah.
I'm saying is that it shouldn't be the goal of Democrats to appeal to the center fold of what
What
socialism
do you
is.
mean by
That if we can
excise?
capture-
What do you mean by excise? I don't know
that
what
if
you mean by
somebody
that.
calls himself a socialist, if they constantly shit on the Democratic Party, then you don't treat them like they're part of your party. If you do go on their platforms, it is solely adversarial.
Wait a second. No. So now we're totally different. If someone calls themselves a socialist, because you agree Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, right?
We're talking about the media sphere.
Okay.
Media.
But Econoboy calls himself a socialist.
Sure.
So we should excise him from the party, correct?
If Econoboy was
Yes or
coming on
no?
my platform, it's not a yes or no question. I don't even know what part of your life you would, even in your lawyer school shit, you wouldn't have picked up on this yes or no autistic bullshit. So I
I'm just
don't
asking
know
you.
where any of this comes. I
Answer
know
the
you're just
fucking
asking. I'm
question,
telling you
bitch.
that it's fucking
Bitch,
retarded.
answer the question.
So I'm
Answer
answering
the question. Are you gonna
The
excise
answer to the
Econoboy or no?
The answer to the question. I'm answering the question. If Econoboy was coming on my stream, is probably generally right now it's going to be to fight over things like we are right now. Yes. And when Econoboy earlier said, "Oh, we should go on stream and hash out something," it's going to be to fight over stuff. Somebody who identifies as a socialist when the
from the
entirety.
party. Should we
I don't know
excise
what
him
you're-
from the party?
That's not what we mean.
If somebody is running a show or running a program and they call themselves socialists, earlier I asked you guys, can you name a single one of these people that don't constantly shit on Democrats? And you guys couldn't think of a single
changing the
name.
fucking
So
game.
I would
So
say yes,
should I-
that is
should-
the subject.
should I-
It's central to
Should
what
I
you're
stop
asking.
live and
Yes.
learn? Should he be on the podcast Live and Learn? Should I
If
excise
all of
Econoboy?
you guys are going to start
So-
supporting socialists,
Wait,
yes,
whoa,
you
whoa,
should.
whoa,
It should be
wait,
on
wait,
Live and
wait,
Learn.
Hang on, wait. So you think that Econoboy, we should not be platforming Econoboy because he labels himself a socialist? Is that right?
Hey,
I think you should
Econoboy is
challenge
like
him at
in
almost all
he's like
times.
moving in the direction of there. Much the same like Sargon of Akkad was like moving in the direction of being a
this is
neo-Nazi.
so even though Econoboy gives you his understanding of what socialism is, he explains himself just as a way I assume that Bernie Sanders and AOC would. Even though he says I'm not a Marxist-Leninist, even though you smeared him as saying he's anti-democratic when he isn't anti-democratic, so even though he caveats all what he means by the term socialism, just because he labels himself socialism, you think that he really shouldn't be on Live and Learn.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't platform him. You guys do what you want with your platform, but I wouldn't want to platform him and say, hey guys, go check out their podcast later,
Unchallenged.
where anti-democratic party people like the Vanguard will be treated as friends and allies that'll come on to shoot the shit for a while, and then immediately where they'll go off to their own platforms to relentlessly shit on the Democratic Party.
So why are you hanging out with Myron
Do you
Gaines?
deny that any of that?
So why are you hanging out with Myron Gaines?
Because every single
Because he
time I hang out with
challenges
Myron
them
Grains,
in
it's a
the debates that he
combative
has.
interaction.
Well,
Okay, so like, but
Wait, hold on. You recognize how stupid that question was, right? You realize you thought you had a big gotcha there, but like, it's not, wait, you acknowledge it. Like when I hang out with Myron Gaines, it's always combative, right?
But you guys have a nice conversation, right? You platform him, you have a nice conversation.
Yes, but it's combative. Nobody comes away from my stream where I'm like, hey guys, make sure you go check out Fresh and Fit. Like they have a lot of cool shit. Ha, ha, ha.
You guys have been going back and forth. So just to be clear, when the Vanguard came onto the podcast, they
Counterpoints
were
says we did at
challenged.
some point. But
They were challenged,
Yeah,
correct? Wait, can we get him to agree that? Were they challenged, Stephen?
Barely.
Well, I was just gonna. So,
Barely, you fucking nitpicking fuck. What do you mean they were barely challenged?
As in, and if you watch it, I think that for the most part, you're gonna like.
Yeah, because you're
like how
fucking
I-
reacting like a fucking sped, and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're fucking being nuanced," and you're reacting that way. And the way you
Mr. Yes or No is going to talk about nuance.
The way that you're fucking presenting it makes people think that we're socialists. Well, Econoboy is socialist, but no, we absolutely challenge them on specifically on the point of
hold on, let
specifically
Pisco
on the
give us
point
an
of
example of where he challenged, where you challenged specifically, Pisco, where you
specifically on
challenged
the point, specifically on the point of Manchin, specifically on the point of student loans, Stephen, you agree we did challenge them with facts and logic, correct?
Yep, facts and
So
logic.
when you said so when you said barely, what did you mean barely? What did you mean by that?
Barely is, and I think people would go on that show and they would assume that all of you guys like had a similar political project in mind. You all shared like a political goal, a political project. Yes.
Okay. So why do you get that impression when we're disagreeing with them on specific issues?
Because hold up, fuck this. Everybody else
Because
is
we
talking for
invited them?
30 fucking minutes. I've had my
Go ahead,
goddamn hand up
Counterpoints.
for 30 fucking minutes. There needs to be some variety on this panel. I'll tell you why. It's because you were playing fucking footsie, and when they came to the next fucking
What do you mean
day,
by playing footsie? What do you mean by playing footsie?
Let him
Did you
explain.
tell-
Let him answer.
Shit. All right. So when we were talking about how, oh, everybody's being so fucking mean to Hutch the fucking next day and all that bullshit, then you're like, oh, well, we technically challenged them on their perspectives and all that kind of bullshit. But realistically, anybody who watched it tonally felt like it was like a 5.5 versus 1 against Hutch.
You guys sound like the biggest bitch woke scolds. Tonally, what are you talking about?
Shut the fuck up, you pussy.
What are you
Anytime
talking
anybody
about?
else talks, you roll your eyes like a fucking valley girl, you fucking twat.
This is like the 2017 centrists all
You're
over.
basically
It's the same thing.
saying,
The classical liberals.
okay, you did disagree with them, but your tone, it sounded like you were nice in your tone.
Yeah,
like
it sounds like you're the fucking youthful cock sleeve for socialists. That's what it sounds like.
Like Steven isn't fucking nice in his tone with Myron Gaines. He is. He absolutely is.
Yeah, and he still has contention, and he still clarifies the ideology.
Yeah, he had contention.
I still have a point from 40 fucking minutes ago that I wanted to make. I've had my hand up for 40 fucking minutes.
Counter, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
thank you. Okay, anyways, my turn. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the Pisco Destiny show. All right, so earlier, Econoboy made a fucking point saying that I kept appealing to conspiracy. And he's made this point 3 or 4 times, so I want to address this briefly.
Please do.
Mao, Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin, Tito, Castro, every leader in the fucking Soviet Union came together through fucking revolution. Okay? They all came from fucking revolution. Then not just that, but Gramsci was arguing about why leftists aren't relevant in fucking Western societies because they have strong social order. And Marcuse and modern lefty philosophers try to normalize Gramsci and Marcusean argument in order to infiltrate Western societies in order to make them more socialist. Corbyn, Sanders, and Noam Chomsky all swept for authoritarian socialist regimes when they were in power and only disavowed them once it was found out all of their authoritarian abuses of their populations. So when you say, Connor, you're being a conspiracist, I say, no, plenty of youthful Western lefty fucking idiots sweep for authoritarian. They're using the playbook that Gramsci and Marcuse wrote in order to subvert Western societies.
Connor, what would I say in response?
Of conspiracism when the conspiracy is documentable in the words of the people who espouse this philosophy.
Let's see if you've been listening.
Back to the Pisco.
Let's see if you've been listening. Let's see if you've been listening to what I've been saying. What do you think I would say in response to that?
That you're not like them. That there are plenty of democratic socialists who are actually nice, whose primary motivations are democracy over socialism.
Yeah.
They're incrementalists. And so as a result, they're not interested in sweeping for the human rights abuses of these authoritarian regimes. And they're not conspiracists. They actually just think that this is the correct ideological outcome.
So if you understand that that is true, and that is at the very least my point, then we've already admitted, we've openly said multiple times that certainly there are a portion of socialists historically and a portion of socialists that live in America that do have these kind of like ulterior motives, right? The thing that I've said is 2 things. I've said, number 1, that historically that is not the great majority of socialist movements, that there's at the very least a meaningfully large divide between those 2 different, methods, you could say, of socialism. And in America, I don't think that even close to the great majority, I don't think even 80%, not even 90%, probably 99% of the 10% of people that vote for Democrats that call themselves socialists, they don't engage in that. So I don't agree.
And I want to make one
very
more point
relevant.
before we get to the Pisco show. Okay, one more point before we get back to the Pisco show.
And then we can get back to the Pisco Destiny show. I agree.
Okay, so if I told you that I was a democratic fascist and I believed in political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism, but I don't agree with the mass slaughters. And as a matter of fact, I'm like a human fascist. I don't want to do ethnic divides and I don't want to do, racial divides. I actually want human beings to be put into a political corporation, a body, and I want flexibly authoritarian governments or whatever. You would probably still call me a fucking idiot because even though democracy was my primary virtue, fascism is still a dog shit ideology, right?
The question that I would ask you is there a robust history of people calling themselves fascist and then winning elections and then leaving after they lose elections? And you couldn't answer yes to that. You
Okay,
couldn't answer yes to that.
Econoboy,
But I
last
can
point, and then we'll go back to
absolutely
the show.
answer yes
Last
to
point,
that
then we'll go
about
back to the
socialists.
drama show, okay? Last point. I think the reason why, I think it's like a house cat versus a lion, okay?
Wait, do you recognize what I just said? How
House
it's
cats have been
disanalogous?
psychologically studied. Hold on. House cats have been psychologically studied that if they were capable of eating their owners, they would. Okay?
You're just trying to say socialists are pussies. I know your game.
I think that, yes, I think that Western socialists are house cats. They cannot eat our faces, so they won't eat our faces. But I think if they were the size of a fucking jaguar, they would start eating our faces. And with that, Pisco start yelling at Destiny some more.
I want to give it to Pisco.
I'm trying to hear the criticism of what we did with the Vanguard, and it sounds like Connor, you identified it, and earlier in our conversation as well. Tonally, it was footsie. Is this your problem with what we did on the Vanguard, Stephen? That's just it.
Okay,
I think tonally,
yes, Stephen, go ahead, Stephen.
Well, tonally, I am prepared more for the Hasan stuff than the Vanguard stuff because I'm more familiar with his content. But like, for instance, when like you immediately and easily would eat the idea that like I would prefer Hasan over Trump as president in a system with absolutely no constraints. Like that's
you can go to Hasan, but I just want to get clarity on this. So as you sit here, do you have a problem?
Totally, my impression with the Vanguard.
Yeah, he's going to
you do have an issue, okay?
My impression was that almost all of the pushback there was coming from Hutch, and I think that's why you guys fought about it the next day, is because Hutch felt like he was kind of on an island there, and that while you guys did disagree with some points, like the student loan thing, you were very quick to make a whole bunch of what I would call insane concessions about Biden, whether you're calling him Trumpian or whatever, because he gets mad at the attorney general or whatever else, and that seems weird to do, almost minstrel showish, in front of a couple of people who are literally hardcore like socialists who shit on Democrats constantly. That's a surprising thing to me.
So you acknowledge that we did disagree with them significantly on the student loan point. Do you acknowledge that I said you can't bully Manchin? Do you acknowledge I said that? And I supported Hutch on that. And you also acknowledge, by the way, that I supported the notion that Biden had great policies and that they were downplaying, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act and other measures, correct?
Yep.
So I did vocalize.
Do you acknowledge that you are giving me exact quotes and what we're criticizing is the tone? You acknowledge how pointless that is, right?
So I'm just asking. So is your problem the tone of the disagreement and what we're doing?
The problem is that it seems like you guys share a political project when I would argue that the socialist movement in general and all of the media figures, the Vanguard included, do not share a political project. That while you obsess about building bridges with them, all they do is shit on your candidates in exchange.
But
you will never have a scenario where the Vanguard or any of these other people are like, oh, we should try to build bridges with more moderate Dems. It will never happen. As
Is one of the problems the tone? Is the tone one of the problems?
Well,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
he said yes, Pisco. So really quick, let me ask Destiny a question. So, would you say that the ideological disposition of someone like Joe Manchin versus the ideological disposition of a guy like Joe Biden, would you say that they share a political project?
Yes.
Okay. So I would say that.
Wait, you're doing this thing again. Actually, I'm not even going to allow this. I'm sorry. You keep doing this thing where you jump to elected lawmakers that are working in the system. I have no interest in talking. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Literally elected representatives. Destiny. What the fuck?
They're not representatives of an ideological movement. They've won an election in a particular district. That's it. Are you gonna? I'm sorry. Hold on. Are you gonna go to West Virginia to figure out who the movement leader is of anybody on the left wing? I want you to answer that question. Are you gonna go to West Virginia to figure out who is the leader of any kind of left wing movement?
That's not what I'm doing, Destiny.
Then why would you say that Manchin represents some like leader of some movement? They won elections. I'm not talking about politicians. The Vanguard are not politicians. I'm talking about the media environment. That's what I'm talking about.
Would you? I'm just Destiny. I'm just using them as an example. Would you say?
No, I'm telling you why I don't like the example. I don't like the example because these are elected officials, not people in the media.
Okay. Okay. Well, you referenced.
Okay. Hold on. I think I could bridge this gap, perhaps. Right. One of the problems.
No, there is no gap to bridge. He can't find an example in the media, and that's my issue. That's the exact problem.
Okay. Well, then look. How about this? How about we just stop? If that's the case, we've already said this several times. Okay. That insofar as people in the media don't share this political project as you've described, they're actually, to Connor's point, they're just hiding their power level and they're actually authoritarian socialists or whatever. We've already agreed several times that that's the extent to which they shouldn't be involved in like the strategic or like, whatever, like in like deep involvement within the movement means. We've already agreed with that several times. So how about this? Well, we can maybe if there's another question you can ask, because we've actually already agreed on that topic. Is there anything
but then I think
else?
the question, the strange thing is, so like, for instance, right? I think that strictly definitionally, I might be considered a eugenicist because I'm okay with people getting tested to see if their child might have Down syndrome, right? And not having those children, right? Technically speaking, that's a form of eugenics. But realistically, would I ever go out and call myself a eugenicist? Probably not, right? So it's just strange that when you're working in a media environment and then you take on the label of socialist, if you were to look up any other and all other socialist content that's being created in that sphere, all of it is dedicated to shitting on the Democratic Party. That's the problem. It's only gotten worse in the past 8 years.
Shouldn't we promote Econoboi? Shouldn't we promote Econoboi? Econoboi, you're saying like, where is this media of a socialist figure who respects the party?
No, you should fight him.
Wait.
For our entertainment.
So shouldn't we therefore, if we're looking for these kinds of figures, to take some of that energy perhaps, or to use the label and get it back to like the roots that that Econoboi is referencing, at least in specific traditions, referencing the Labour Party in UK and Australia,
MSNBC show.
Yeah. So on that front, why would I kick Econoboi off? Why wouldn't I promote Econoboi?
Well,
because that label. Because that label has already been co-opted by all of, not co-opted, more accurately represented. But then I guess this also goes back to definitional issue, right? Like if you put AOC and Hassan Piker in a room and you give a bunch of people who know what socialism is and they're read on theory, 100 out of 100 of those people are going to say Hassan is more of a socialist than AOC. If you put 100 people read on theory and you say, do you think AOC is more of a capitalist liberal or more of like a socialist? Almost all of them will say she's more of a liberal capitalist.
Square this for me. So you said earlier that, okay, it's not necessarily about the socialist label, and you agreed that there's a diversity in what that actually means.
For sure.
It's about socialists within the media space. But then Pisco mentions, well, what if AOC retires from Congress and starts an MSNBC show? Like, it sounds like you would be against that, but then you say, no, because she labels herself as a socialist, I would be against it. But now it seems like you're saying it actually is the label.
It's incoherent.
It's absolutely coherent. It seems like coherent because you're not familiar with any of the politics behind any of it. It would be challenging, but the issue that you run into is, so you could say, could they wash the socialist label and make it so that in your mind, I've said this, I don't say it again, I don't think that you are a secret tanky. I hope you're not on the way to tankies. I don't think you are, and I don't think AOC is, just from what I've seen. I don't think she's a secret tanky or anything. Could she, clean the socialist label in a way that these people are more compatible with a liberal form of government that's not like vanguardism or whatever? Maybe, but then if I look at what's happened over the past decade, when people like AOC and Bernie Sanders have popularized the socialist label, what actually happened? All of the people that worked with them and then were spun off became insane fucking radicals, right? A lot of the people who are criticizing them now are other socialists who are all saying they're fucking sellouts. It seems like that didn't work too well.
So if AOC started a show, media-wise, she quit her job, started a show to promote her ideas, would you have a problem with it? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. So you don't have a problem inherently with someone having the socialist label and being a media figure, do you?
No.
So why do you have this prescription?
Let's get a clap. Can we get a round of applause for those? Yes or no?
Hang on.
Yeah,
I mean, this is all fucking performance what you're doing. Yeah. So why is your prescription therefore, if you don't have
I can't do whys. I only do yes or no's. Can you format that in yes or no question?
I'm going to focus it. If it's the case that you...
Or multiple choice I could do, yeah.
If it's the case that you wouldn't have a problem with AOC if she stopped being a politician, became a media figure, and started a show, why then... So you don't have a problem with it in principle. Why would you have a prescription that we should kick Econoboy off the show because he's...
Steven, hold on. I have an important question. Steven, I have an important question, and you need to answer it yes or no, okay? Yeah. Do you think that Nick Fuentes should be able to have a TV show?
Nice cover for Steven. So
yes,
Steven,
do you think do you think that Nick Fuentes should be able to have a TV show?
Nice meme.
It's a free liberal country.
These are actual questions. These are...
no shit, Pisco, but the reason why I'm asking this question... Hold on, Pisco, apparently you can't understand where this is going. No, I'll go ahead and explain it because you don't understand where this is going.
Wait, can I real quick? Real quick. You can go right after. This is a really important point. Hold on, you can go right after, I swear. Okay, this is, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, should AOC run as a far-left progressive and never use the word socialist, I would say absolutely yes, and we would all be better off for it. That's what I would say.
Not the question. Not the question.
Hold on. I do want to hear where Counterpoints is going. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Why? Why aren't you going to make Steven answer the question?
The point.
You guys are running cover.
Hold on, stop. What question did he not answer?
No, he memed. No, come on. You know he memed there. You know he memed there.
No,
you know. Wait.
I am making a point.
Stop.
I'm making a point.
He's like a white blood cell. He's a white blood cell, and he's trying to stop this because
No, I'm not. This is my point. This is my point.
Connor had a legitimate point. On the answer to the question whether or not AOC should make a TV show has no bearing on any other part of this conversation. There was a retarded question.
It's called an internal critique. Hey, dipshit. It's called an internal critique, dipshit. It's called an internal critique.
What is the internal critique?
You had a standard. Wait, and everyone knows. Holy shit, Connor. Everyone knows your standard. Your standard was, I don't really have a problem using the socialist label if you're a politician, but I do have a problem with it with your media figure. So I'm testing your logic. I'm testing your standard. You're not testing it.
You're taking a person who's going from being a politician to being a media figure who happens to also be the most popular left-wing person in the United States of America. It's obviously not the standard. You're going to the outer perimeter of the outer perimeter of things.
So why don't you answer and distinguish it? So why don't you answer instead of memeing out of it? I
already did answer. Do you forget the question?
No.
Did you get the answer? I already said yes. If you want to do a show, I guess you could, but I don't think you should use the label socialist. I think it's harmful to the country.
No. I'm not asking.
I know you're not asking because you're only interested in the narrow yes or no questions to go down your particular dialogue tree.
This is why you have a prescription that we should kick Econoboy off the show because he used the socialist label. That's your prescription. You actually want us to kick him off.
The name of your show is Live and Learn, not Something Learn, right?
So you literally want us to kick Econoboy off because of the label. I'm trying to test your internal consistency, and you're sewing the fuck out.
We're not here to test my entire internal consistency.
Why wouldn't we do
It's not preposterous. I asked you guys earlier if you can name a single other socialist figure in media that supports the Democratic Party, and neither of you dipshits can name even one fucking person. You can't even name one person, and you sit here swaying out about whether it should be appealing to the left, and you can't even name one.
Econoboy. Wait, is Econoboy an example?
No,
he's not. Why? So we shouldn't kick him out.
He literally just fucking converted. Holy shit!
For just converts, we shouldn't enforce this kind of.
Do you think that Nazis? Hold on. Do you think that Nazis can have a positive influence in our media sphere to push people?
If I could, you mean logically possible? Then yes.
Okay, wait, hold on. Do you think that there might be at least one person that could help the Democratic Party or help people get elected? By the way, identify as a Nazi right now. Also, let's say, by the way, AOC identifies as a Nazi right now. Do you think that Nazis can help the Democratic Party? No, wait, I'm just asking. Hold on. I just want to say, hypothetically, do you think that a Nazi could have a positive influence? Yeah, do you see how retarded this fucking question is?
If by might be you mean logically possible, the answer is yes, but let me just put it to you, right? So your standard was that right now we should actually kick Econoboy off of the podcast because he uses the term socialist label. You wouldn't say the same for a politician. You wouldn't say the same for a politician running for office. And so you were given the example of a politician who stops being a politician, becomes a media figure. Should we treat them similarly? So like if AOC said, hey, I want to be a part of Live and Learn, and I'm like, what the fuck? You
my turn.
Let me
I waited 10 minutes. My turn.
You will wait as long as I want you to wait.
Dude,
you will wait as long as I want you to wait.
You know where this is going. You know that's why they won't let me finish the question. The question is, if we kick out,
if you answer the question, you can ask the question when I'm done.
If we kick out Econoboy and AOC's like, I want to join Live and Learn, guys, should we say no?
Okay. No, hold on. Before you guys go on another fucking 20-minute fucking thing, Steven, write down the question. So I'm not white blood selling, so you can answer the question. If AOC wants to join the show, should you say yes? Okay? So write that down so Pisco can't accuse me of white blood selling. The point that I was making, for those of you who have 80 IQ in the fucking audience, is that Steven, as far as I know, is a liberal. Meaning that he believes in freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. Meaning that socialists... Hold on. I'm not done yet. Thank you. I love you. Shut up. So, if you ask Steven, hey, should a socialist be able to create a TV show? 99% of the time, he's gonna say yes. The same way that I presume with Fuentes, even though he's an evil, nefarious Christian nationalist,
no one's talking about.
He's still going to say yes to the fucking
No one's
question.
talking about the right to make a show. No one's talking about your legal.
You guys are all talking past each other. This is frustrating. This is frustrating. This is frustrating. This is very frustrating.
No one's done question.
I just have to ask a question. I just have to ask a question. Pisco, do you think that there is any utility in gatekeeping a label?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yes. So if you want to gatekeep Democrat or liberal as a label, do you think that it makes sense to say, hey, we can have a show, we can have you on it, but if we're going to call ourselves liberals, you can't be on it because we only accept liberals?
That could be for the purposes. Wait. No, that's a different question. So the answer is that if the show is called Live and Learn,
yes.
I don't have a problem in theory with you having a non-liberal be part of the show Live and Learn. If that has to do more with, like, I don't know, your artistic consistency or your title being consistent or something. But the question is fundamentally different. The question is, would it be your preference to kick off people who have that label? Not would we want them to change the label? That's not the question. The question is, should we even let them, or when by let, I don't hear, of course, to Connor's preposterous straw man, mean that like legally take away their right to have legally. Yeah, so he's like,
Steven, answer the question. That way he can't accuse me of being a white blood cell because he wouldn't have any fucking evidence for it anyways. Answer his gay little question.
So no one here is talking. First of all, I don't like the heteronormative language. I think it's really distressing. But
I love heteronormativity.
Yeah, I don't like the heteronormative language. It's distressing. But just by the way,
I like the misogynistic language.
By
the way, you guys are sewing out about tone, so you're the last people. But just to get a fine point on it.
Hold on, wait, tone is insofar as tone to a certain person. We wouldn't be complaining if you had a bad tone towards somebody that was your ideological enemy.
You have a good tone. Wait, you had a nice tone with Myron.
Ideologically aligned with you.
Do you agree that you had a nice tone with Myron Gaines?
Nobody will come out of that.
No.
It is a combative tone. Nobody will come out of that conversation. Tone is more than just your like actual timbre of voice.
Were you?
Hold on. How many people would come out of that conversation thinking, "Wow, Destiny and Myron seem to agree on quite a bit"?
And how many people would come out of my conversation and think, well, sorry.
You got yourself, because you knew how much how bullish you were.
No, stop.
My God.
Wait, Steven.
In 8K, 120 FPS, fucking 120 frame rate, 240 refresh rate on monitor, broadcasting live, all the fucking world exposed.
No, I'm not backing off at any position. So I'm saying if you watch the actual stream and listen to the words being said, then no one would come away from that thinking that we didn't combat them. If they watch the Destiny stream, where you're smearing us,
watched your stream. I don't think you pushed back very well.
Question. Wait. You were looking at the chats.
So if you watch the Destiny stream where he's spurging out every 2 seconds, and if you watch the Destiny stream where he's like, oh my God, then maybe you get that impression. But if you
okay, wait, I'm curious. Wait, if you were to look at the chats, do you think there were more people in my chat who were favorable to Myron in our conversation, or more people in your chat that were favorable to Vanguard?
That's not the analysis. That's not the analysis at all.
The question is, you want to answer that question because you know exactly. That's the whole point. That's the analysis.
Were you being? Did you have a nice? Answer the question. Do you have a nice tone with Myron? Yes or no?
The point of tone is what is the message that you are conveying to the audience. The point is what is the message you are conveying to the audience. If it is the fact that at the end of the day, most of my audience, the vast majority, 99% of my audience, all disagree with Myron, that means that I'm doing my job. My tone is appropriate for that. I would not have the same tone if my audience was all agreeing with Myron. I would probably change my tone and become a lot more harsh. I know that you really want to do this and yes or no questions, but unfortunately politics is a little bit harder than yes or no. So you can keep asking the same yes or no question over and over again, but it's not really going to help you. The fact of the matter is, if you go to your chat, you see a ton of people spamming, fuck Democrats, fuck Democrats, fuck Democrats over and over again. You don't see the same people in my chat
does not spam that. My chat does not spam that. That is so false. So my chat does not spam that at all. My chat does not spam that at all. The question is like for you to be accusing anybody and tone policing anybody. Oh, in your conversation you seemed too nice in your disagreement is fucking laughable, and everybody knows it because you've had nice conversations.
It's only laughable if your understanding of tone is that of a 4-year-old.
The important thing is writing fucking racist and shills.
And it's so crazy that my audience, by and large, 99% of them reject it, but your audience is halfway down the fucking ML pipeline. Halfway down the ML pipeline.
You say that, but my audience, those videos where I'm pushing back are disliked. My audience is not close to the Marxist.
Because I'm watching them. Yeah, no shit. You just said it. You just said it. Who's going to soy out about it the most? It's going to be people that are watching Destiny watching it. Yeah, no shit.
My own audience,
pushing back at all.
So my did push back. We definitely objectively did push back. And you're not contending with the fact that you, Stephen Bonnell, you are a massive fucking hypocrite. If you're going to come to us and say, we need to watch our tone when we vocally disagree, and by the way, you take it completely out of context, that we need to watch our tone, but you're fine doing all the jokes you want. In other contexts, you think it's soy. You think it's soy when people call you out for tone policing, that kind of shit. But now with us, you're going to nitpick and say, oh, did you really?
You have called
Pisco. Do you believe in sarcastic rhetoric?
The purpose of tone is to communicate to the audience what your beliefs are, what their beliefs should be.
No one fucking believes it.
Your argument is retarded. Because if you go to my audience, they're not fucking Nazis. They're not all supporting Myron Gaines. Your audience is like, who the fuck knows if they're socialists or not? Half of them are, right? Like, unironically, not the nice kind like Econoboy, but the Marxist-Leninist kind like your co-host.
Yeah. So wait, my co-host is Marxist-Leninist?
For Aaron is an ML, yes. That's like where your audience is the direction that they're going, yes.
You understand that Aaron says she's not a Marxist-Leninist. Do you agree with that? That she's
I don't identify people. You know that Trump doesn't call himself a fascist, right?
Yeah. So what's your evidence? What's your evidence that she's a Marxist-Leninist? Go up.
Ask her about her political beliefs the next time you're
No. You made an assertion, didn't you? Did you make an assertion?
Because she would support the violent overthrow of the capital class and would say the only way to bring about class consciousness in a socialist revolution is to violence.
What's your evidence of that? What is your
conversations?
What is your evidence of that? Prior conversations. What did she say? What did she say? What did she say?
I don't have the fucking VOD offhand. Are you serious? You need me to have the VOD? You want me to have the exact fucking
Tell me what she said to you, bitch. Hey, bitch, tell me what you said.
Stop.
Bitch, what did you say?
God.
Hold on. Let me do a little translating here. I would like an example from Destiny. What specific position or take that Straighter Ed has had that you feel leads you to believe that she's a Marxist-Leninist?
But in the past, when we used to hop on stream and like argue and shit, her position is generally that of like a revolutionary socialist.
Name one position.
She would support the violent overthrow of the capital class. She probably thinks the only way.
Have evidence for that. That's conclusory. What's the evidence? You're saying probably. Name one position.
You think that is a position that in order to bring about the revolution requires a violent overthrow of the capital class.
And you're saying that Straighter Ed has made that position. That's her position. Is that she has said
on stream
that or maybe in a talk
this is years ago. I don't have
fucking Democrats. She canvassed for fucking what is this progressive victory?
She didn't say that.
Hold on. Stop. You have nothing. You have nothing.
Pisco. You understand that just because she canvassed for Democrats does not mean that she does not hold that position.
So here's my evidence that she's not a Marxist-Leninist. One, I asked her, are you a Marxist-Leninist? Do you uphold it? Wait. That is a piece of wait. If you're going to take things that she said as evidence that she's a Marxist-Leninist, then you're going to accept things that I asked.
The whole point is to be subversive. No shit, they say no. What the fuck?
Okay, so
holy
what's the
shit.
So is it your position she openly says it or she doesn't say it? What is it?
No, she advocates for the policies and positions that a Marxist-Leninist would, like the need for a vanguard party to have I already said the fact that you need a violent overthrow of the capital class is like the classic hallmark position of a Marxist-Leninist.
She never said that.
All right.
She never said
ask
that.
Her, okay, then the next time you guys have a show, you should ask her. You should say, hey, do you think that the capitalists would willingly give up control of their property, or do you think you would need some kind of like violent revolution in order to take the property from them?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
I will. And if you're right, I'll give you a W. But the thing is,
the problem is if she is being subversive, all she'll have to do is lie to you. Right? That's the problem.
Then it's literally unfalsifiable. Well, then it's literally unfalsifiable. Then it's unfalsifiable, right?
I don't think that she would lie about that.
Is it unfalsifiable? Wait, Stephen, what would it take for me to show you for that she's not a Marxist-Leninist? What would it take?
You understand that right now, when both of you, right now, when both of you have staked your reputation now on this question that's publicly said, there's no real thing I could give you right now, right?
So I'm asking you, is it unfalsifiable?
I'm asking you. You understand that both of you are
what
literally
evidence would it take? What evidence would it take to convince you otherwise? That's a simple question. You can say nothing. Nothing will convince me otherwise. You can say it.
Unless she has like genuinely changed her political beliefs over time.
Will anything change your mind about that position? Yes or no?
Like if there was like a debate that she had like 2 months ago and somebody linked me and she was like, oh no, like I don't think that like these ideas are necessarily good or whatever. Then they'd be like, oh shit, maybe she changed her beliefs.
So we'll go through the receipts of what Straighter Ed said, and if a thorough search of her records or of her fucking public statements doesn't say anything about a violent revolution,
clips, go search.
Doesn't say anything about a violent revolution, will you retract your statement? If a thorough search of her records, will you retract this claim that you just made that she's a Marxist-Leninist?
Hold on, I submit. Okay, here we go. We were linked this. I submit this to the chat. Go, play it. Wick, play it down for us.
Give me a second. Let me.
God damn, we got to look up clips and shit. What is this? History?
Yeah, we got a clip. Hold on.
Every single quote. I guess for every.
You substantiate that. You have a study.
Share your screen.
Let me pull this up on stream. Yeah, so everyone can see. Right? We could share my screen. Let me show you. I'm not sharing anything. I shouldn't. Okay. No, we don't want to wash here. Okay. Oh no, that's the wrong one. You already did it. There we are. Okay, let me get through the commercial.
The great challenges in this world.
Okay, give me a second. Yeah, blah blah blah. We don't care, Neil. Just grass Tyson.
I don't know if that's
okay, here we are.
Or not. So I don't like. Are you a vocal socialism? We have some disagreement. Okay, so you're not a socialist.
No, I'm not a socialist. Okay, I'm a communist. That's why it says commie.
Oh,
I'm not a socialist. I'm a communist.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Explain to it.
I actually feel like mainstream people who call themselves socialists are actually communists, but they're too scared to say that they're communists, so they call themselves socialists because right now that's kind of like where the cultural zeitgeist is permissible of.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're good. Okay. I'm good on that. I'm good on that one. I'm good. I'm ready for a Pisco to soy out.
Hold on. Hold on. I have to ask directly. Stop. I'm asking you, Pisco. Is that sufficient evidence to you?
No.
No,
wait,
that her saying I'm a
the
commie
answer,
is not sufficient evidence that she's a communist.
The answer is I know that Aaron says she's a commie, and and Steven, you can tell he's fucking soying the fuck out because I acknowledge that Aaron has said that she's a commie. It's a position she's had. The question wasn't is she a commie or not, and you are the one who says, by the way, Steven, your whole point is you can't just go off the label.
Absolutely, you're smoking. Your corpse is smoldering on this.
Destiny, wasn't it you who just said? Wait, Destiny, didn't you just say that
you're about to pull out the most pedantic argument we've ever heard in our entire life?
Destiny.
She said, I think socialists are too scared to identify as communists, implying that it's a more radical position. But go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Save us. Yeah, what do you got?
Did you just say before that you should not take the label to be indicative of whether that person is the thing? Did you say that? That's all I'm asking.
I said it's not necessarily. It doesn't mean they're not, but not necessarily.
So for example,
for instance, when she labels herself as a communist and then she supplies additional argumentation saying, I call myself a communist because I think that most socialists are too scared to even call themselves that, that would be an additional argument for the label.
Steven, I just one more question. Yesterday, did you say that all socialists are communists? Yes or no?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think that all socialists are communists.
You did say that all socialists are communists.
Well, hold on. Straight Arena agrees with Destiny.
Did you have the exact same position that Aaron just had?
Yes.
They'll get the clip yesterday. You saying all communists are socialists. You did say that, didn't you, yesterday?
I probably also said all MAGA are like pedophiles. Do you think I actually genuinely believe that all MAGA are pedophiles?
So you aligned. So were you right then or are you right now? Were you right then or are you right now? Were you right then or are you right now?
Well, if it's like a serious conversation where somebody's trying to tease out my political beliefs, so I could, like when Aaron was inquired about her beliefs there, it's probably going to be a lot more serious than me just saying like fucking socialists or commies or whatever, right? For instance, when Econoboy earlier asked me, do you think that I'm like a techie or whatever? Like, no, I don't think so. I think Econoboy is genuinely where he's at politically. So I've already disproved the quote mine, and you're trying to get me on. I don't think Econoboy is a secret fucking
yesterday,
communist.
everyone can see it. Everyone can see it.
Yesterday, notice how you've moved off, so everyone can see he's desperately trying to quote mine a four-word quote to get out the fact that his co-host is actually a Marxist-Leninist. The issue is that Pisco didn't even know what Marxist-Leninist was until like 2 days ago, which is why when somebody brought it up in a conversation, he was like, wait, do you mean Marxist or do you mean Leninist? Or when somebody said white terror, he thought, white terror, you mean hate crimes? Like, what does that mean? Right? You're trying desperately to assassinate me on a single quote, but the reality is you just don't know so much about these political ideologies, which is that's why people are able to use and abuse you guys on these programs, because you don't know anything about them.
Yesterday, Destiny said, socialists are communists. There's no distinction. He said there's no distinction between socialists and communists. And now...
Was he being literal or was he talking about power levels?
So let Pisco finish, please. It's all jokes when you can't hold anything to Steven, obviously, because there's always fucking some opposite quote or something, and that he's just joking.
No, I just don't have autism, so I can understand.
This is actually so easy. I can ask. Wait. We can do this right now. Hold on. I'm not even going to appeal to the moderator. Econoboy, do you think that I think that socialists and communists are the exact same thing?
No, probably not.
I mean, I do. I think that they suck.
Oh, okay.
So easy. Wow, crazy. Crazy how that works. That's your debate partner, by the way. Not even the moderator.
So what did you mean when you said that? Actually, what did you mean?
I don't know. What was the context of the quote?
I already know the context of the quote because I already saw the fucking clip. He was talking about power level. He was saying that fucking he's saying that socialists hide their power levels. They're actually communists. He's saying that fucking sock dems are hiding their power levels. They're actually socialists.
Which is funny because that's what Aaron just said. She's hiding a lot of socialists are communists and they lie about it.
Crazy code.
By the way, shut the fuck up, Pisco. You've been talking for 20 minutes. I waited my turn. Okay. So by the way, this backs up your argument. You've said that social democrats are everybody who identifies as a socialist is actually a social democrat.
So now when you get caught, now there's shades of gray.
Hyperbole,
so now when you get caught, now the shades of gray matter.
Let Pisco go. Hold on, let Pisco finish. Pisco, finish your thought.
So now when you get caught with the contradiction, now it's like, oh, okay, I guess not all socialists are these fucking Marxist-Leninists. I guess that when you call yourself a socialist, it doesn't really matter. So you get caught on that shit, and now you're taking the position that socialism is a broader term. It doesn't just mean the tankies. It doesn't just mean the Marxist-Leninists. You're absolutely correct.
From the very beginning of this conversation, didn't I say that socialism can encompass a lot of different things?
You did.
Wait, hang on a second.
Why do you think your statement?
I don't know. The answer is I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
So I just reread things that you said at the beginning of the debate, and then I repeat them in a condescending voice. Am I making like a really good point?
The answer is I don't know. So if you acknowledge there are shades of gray socialism, then there are some socialists that you would absolutely have within the fold, wouldn't it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just like there might be shades of gray classical liberalism, but if somebody calls themselves a classical liberal and then they associate with exclusively Nazis, I probably wouldn't allow that person to be within my fold.
Okay, cool. So
notice how that was a one-to-one analogy. And
you want to go to Hassan? No, it's not one-to-one.
Just real quick.
I'll explain why it's not one-to-one. I'll explain why it's not one-to-one because Econoboy points you to a tradition, a peaceful, robust tradition of socialists in Western countries that don't include all the negatives that Nazism by its sort of
because they're house cats who can't eat your face yet. Because they're house cats who can't eat your face yet. Because they're house cats who can't eat your face yet.
So that's why it's not a one-to-one comparison.
Well, let me ask.
Econoboy pointed you that record, and you want to ignore it.
Let me ask.
But that's not true though, because a lot of people would say somebody like Reagan was a fascist, and we came out okay from having Reagan as president. You're laughing now, but people abuse the term fascist, so they talk about Bush as being a fascist as well. And guess what? We survived that as well. And so people want to say that they were socialists or whatever. That's fine. But guess what? All of this worked under the fascists and the socialists together. Guess what? It worked under a liberal capitalist government, and that's the type of thing that I think we should be defending. Not a full-on socialist government, because that's always been a fucking shit show, and not a full-on fascist government because that's always been a full-on.
I have a question for Econoboy. I have a question for Econoboy. So, do you extend that? You laid out the history of socialism, but when Straighterade, who does a show with Pisco, right, calls herself a communist, do you extend that to communism? To communists are just these things that can coexist with liberal democracies?
Okay, so I'll answer the question directly. Even Marx himself, this is a direct quote from Marx, said that things like lower stage communism would be stamped with the society that we lived in the past. Okay, now what he meant by that was that lower stage communism, as communism comes into being, that during that process, the stamps of the current society that we live in will be present in lower stage communism. What he meant by that,
historical example of a communist party like a communist taking power and in a liberal democracy surviving that.
I'm telling you what the most famous foundational thinker of communism literally thought communism was.
I just want a historical example.
Now, your question was, could communism exist within liberal frameworks? Okay. Marx himself advocated for many things that we would call liberal. He said things like freedom of speech, the equality of people, the fundamental freedom of people to coexist with each other were important characteristics of communism as it comes into being, and communism when we get to supposedly the final stage of communism. So to answer your question, yes, liberal values would exist.
Which country where a communist?
Can you admit that I just answered your first question at the very least? That I directly answered your first question? I need to acknowledge
my follow-up question. But my follow-up question matters too, right? My follow-up question after you ask that is, okay, if that's possible, give me an example in the real world where it's happened, where a communist party has come to power and a liberal democracy has survived.
The only example that I'm familiar with, and I'm not totally familiar with the history of here, obviously I've been focusing on European experiments. The Kerala province in India, which like tens of millions of people live in, has been run by communists for basically the last 50 years, and they're actually a Marxist-Leninist party, and they operate in democratic frameworks, and they do basically, they have a liberal kind of style system of government within their general ethos. Now they are Marxist-Leninists, right? And I'll admit, I could be misunderstanding the area of Kerala, because I'm not totally familiar with the region.
Not familiar, fair enough.
But they do have elections, and they do have elections, and they do call themselves communists. Their leader is literally a guy named Stalin.
The reason I'm asking this, and I'll give it to you, Pisco, but I want to explain the reason I asked this question. The reason I asked this question is because the whole debate is about, right, the accusation against you and against Econoboy is that you're giving cover to people who want to infect the Democratic Party with things, illiberal values that we would be against, that would destroy democracy, right? And your co-host has just admitted, at least we saw on 4K, that she is a communist, a full-on communist. And
wait, but when you say she's just admitted, you understand that I know, and I've never represented, and it wasn't an own for anyone to put up a clip of her calling herself a communist. But the reason why it was done and presented that way is because as though it were contradictory, when the whole point I was making is show some basis that she's a Marxist-Leninist. Now you can say, Wick, as you are trying to imply, that historically it's impossible, this kind of society is impossible. That's fine. That's not a contradiction, right? There are a lot of anarcho-communists or anarcho-capitalists where you could say, show me one place where anarcho-libertarianism or anarcho-capitalism or anarcho-communism communist has worked and it hasn't descended into chaos and some kind of kingship or some kind of thing. And yeah, you can be against them, but you would not call an anarcho-capitalist a fascist or a tyrant or an authoritarian just because there's no example of it working. It would be inaccurate to call someone, even if they're deluded, even if they think like, okay, my way will work, you know, all these other times they did it wrong, that it's not accurate to call that anarcho-capitalist or that anarcho-communist a tanky. It's just not. And I think that you must acknowledge that. Like, if you acknowledge that, for example, in the Spanish Civil War, anarcho-communists were communists were killing each other over these like differences in ideology and the support of Russia.
I take your point.
Things.
No, I take your point,
Yes.
but like when I say communist, I mean Marxist-Leninists. That's what I mean. Whether it's technically true or accurate, right? Just like as you said,
you don't care. You don't care if it's
about
true.
Socialists, people define it broadly and mean different things. What I'm assuming most people mean, right, when they say they're a communist, is they're a Marxist-Leninist. It's
right. So why don't we just get past the semantics and actually get to the actual prescriptions? Let's get past the semantics and just say, all right, in terms of prescriptions, what do we want? Like, do you want me to cancel a show with Econoboy because he labels himself a socialist? Do you want me to stop interacting with anyone who labels himself a communist or hosting a show with that? So what do you actually want?
That's not any of my advocacy.
I want you to own them in the marketplace of ideas.
But I do have one more clip we have to play, so if we can watch that just real quick.
30
and then we will get through it. Sorry about the ads. I am poor. I don't have.
And issue by issue, I'll be able to tell you because that's going to be more clarifying than just giving you a label. Because people just project onto it whatever they want.
Are you in favor of abolishing private property?
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay, well that's pretty simple.
You say these things and you have this tone of voice. It's like
you can't
like a
tell
smirk. So I can't tell if you're
being
being sarcastic or not.
She's so serious.
I know.
No, I'm dead serious on that one. I am. But I guess
Is this what we wanted to see?
What's the contradiction there?
I don't know.
There's no contradiction, right? Wait. So you understand, as part of your definition, right? As part of your definition for what socialism meant, it entailed people being against private property. And private property here meaning capital, all right? The means of production. So that is not inconsistent with someone being not a Marxist-Leninist. Just because you support the abolishment of private property doesn't make you a Marxist-Leninist. Do you agree, yes or no, Stephen?
Do what?
Do you agree, yes or no, that just because someone's in favor of the abolishment of private property, that doesn't necessarily make them a Marxist-Leninist?
Not necessarily, but if you're too scared to call yourself, or if you say you don't want to be a socialist, but you are more extreme than that and you're a communist, if you say that you're in favor of like the abolition of private property, if you say, we don't have to watch it, I guess, but our last clip is, and I'm sure you'll explain this one too, when you say things like, oh yeah, I wish AOC would like a socialist revolution in the United States, where revolution historically is like aligned with a violent revolutionary overthrow of the capital class.
AOC says revolution. Those politicians themselves are. You're going to say it's different when the politicians says it?
This is exactly why I said earlier, I don't think AOC should call himself a socialist, because this is the game. This is like the meme, right? I don't think AOC means a violent revolution when she says it. I don't think so. But like, this is the game.
But Aaron does. But Aaron does. Do you think Aaron does mean violent revolution?
Of course.
And that's based on so why are you distinguishing how AOC says it and Aaron says it? You justify that. Go.
Because when Aaron says it, Aaron says that she thinks that most socialists would be communists, but they're too scared to say it publicly, implying that her position is more radical than what most socialists would admit to.
There. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't show what you just said.
When somebody said, do you think, no, stop. Do you think it's more likely that it's more radical or less radical when she says that? What do you think that means when she says, I think most people wouldn't own being, I want you to explain that. When she says, I don't think most people would own being communist publicly, so they call themselves socialists. What does she mean when she says that?
I think she says that communism has a particularly negative connotation and denotation, sort of embodied in the definition, but that doesn't imply, that's just saying that she thinks that the distinction between a socialist and a communist doesn't make much sense.
Why don't we just ask her?
This is a Hassan game.
Would we all be okay if I just
socialist doesn't have a negative distinction in the United States, but communist does? Like, what a delusional take.
Wait. You acknowledge I didn't just say that, right?
What you said that?
Do you acknowledge I didn't say?
That's what it said. Restate it.
No, it was comparative, right?
You said you made it sound like communism has a negative connotation versus socialism. I don't think that was one.
Did you acknowledge that what I said there was comparative? I said comparing socialism and the term communism. And do you agree that communism has a more negative connotation than socialism? Yes or no?
Not meaningfully, no.
You don't think that the term communism, so you don't think there's a meaningful distinction in the connotation of communism and socialism in this country?
No. There is not a single person in the United States where you go, hey, somebody's like, are you a communist? You're like, oh, no, I'm not a communist. I'm a socialist. And I'm like, oh, whew. No, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
and there's not a single group in the United States where you're hanging around a bunch of people who are like, oh, I'm socialist. And you're like, oh, you're socialist? I'm actually a communist. And I'm like, oh,
we live in a different country.
We live in a different country. Stupid. It's such a
Stephen, you and I live in a different country. Obviously, if so the proof is in the pudding. Do you think that Mamdani would have won the Democratic primary if he called himself a communist?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay, I don't think he would have won. I think that there's a much more negative connotation on the term communist than there is socialist, and I don't even think that your audience, as sycophantic as it is, would deny that.
I think right of Biden, these are synonyms.
I mean, I think it's okay. To be fair, I think it's obviously the case that, I mean, intuitively, right? I think there's a reason why a shitload of people in America identify themselves as socialist, but not communist, right? Like, I think that there probably is both an ideological disagreement with people who would generally call themselves communist, and also generally much more of a stigma for people who label themselves as communism. If these things were substantially the same and had substantially the same amount of stigma, then obviously you'd see a significant basically mixture of those two. But you'd see you'd see a significant mixture of those things, but you see overwhelmingly people calling themselves socialists and not communists.
Because you're allowed to attach yourself like a cancer onto the democratic movement. That's why we have all these cute and clever words of like social democratic, democratic socialist.
Why don't they call themselves communist? Why don't they call themselves democratic communists then? Like it would be like
I think that's not the term that took hold. I don't know. Maybe eventually they'll make their way over there. I don't know why. If they use communist instead of socialism, you're just saying why they're calling it
is so beyond everything. So right now, you know that you're cooking on this point. You know but you can't optically right now. You can say, oh, you know what?
You just heard your co-host say that they were for the abolition of private property, and they wish that more people would identify as a communist, but they're too scared to do so publicly. And you don't think that they're like radical as fuck in terms of the Marxist leadership,
right? Even when everyone, not even Connor will defend the point. My butt cell. He won't defend the point that communism doesn't have a more connotative, like negative, connotation.
I already said it did, but I don't think it's like meaningfully more negative. Okay. Why are you saying? Really? Did you not hear me say that earlier? Did you not say something more meaningfully?
No. So I'm obviously saying meaningfully more different. It's meaningfully different.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. I would like an opportunity to speak because I've been nice and quiet for a while.
Before you do, I do.
Fuck my ass.
I do have a question for the panel. If Straighter Aid wanted to come on and be interrogated about these things, would that be okay?
I would love to talk to Straighter Aid about
We have to talk about Hassan. We haven't talked about Hassan
do it
yet.
after, because fuck all that. I'll do it after if you want.
Do it after.
We have to talk about Hassan, don't we?
We'll get to that.
We'll talk about Hassan. So what I want to talk about is like, all right, so take Connor's critique. Yeah, I want to hear about it. This is what I'm curious about, and I want to know if you have anything to speak to. How do you think that we, mere mortals, live and learn, how should we conform our conduct? What would you like to see from us that we're not doing right now?
I actually have something that I think you would be quite amenable to. So if you actually think that capitalism and mixed economy capitalism is preferable to socialism, as I defined it, the decommodification of basic human needs, workers owning the means of production, if you think that's genuinely better than when you have MLs or when you have socialists onto your program, I would like to see you challenge them, not just on rhetoric and efficacy and all that kind of bullshit. I would like to see you fight them on the economics.
This is how cooked this is, right? Like in that conversation with the Vanguard, we weren't discussing liberalism versus capitalism. We were discussing the best way. Wait, let me finish my thought. We were discussing the best way to get Biden's agenda. That's what's so silly about this whole thing. We were discussing about what tactically we should have done for Biden's agenda. So for you guys to paint this as it was ideological and you didn't give pushback,
I don't need a 5-minute sermon.
No, it was about tactics to enact Biden's vision.
I don't need or want a 5-minute sermon. So so Pisco, let me tell you about this. Okay, this is my problem. This actually, and it's indicative of this entire 2.5-hour conversation. What I'm saying is that there are authoritarian dissident freaks on the far left and on the right. And on the right, the dissident right-wing freaks have infected and destroyed the party that I was a part of. 55% of the party that I identified with growing up is now dead because of these fucking monsters. And so when I look to the left and I see a bunch of normie liberals, capitalists, fucking all this bullshit playing footsie with revolutionary socialists, not only does that turn me off, hold on, I'm not done yet. Thank you for your condescending look and your open mouth. I don't need it right now. Thank you. So when I see that, I'm going to criticize it, because what I don't want to happen is you and other people like you spending 3 hours sweeping for the fucking far left, and then as a result, they become more powerful and more emboldened. It's indicative in this conversation. It's indicative in the Vanguard conversation. It's indicative in the way that you talk about Hassan Piker. It's indicative in the way that you talk about the far left.
Fuck Hassan.
It doesn't matter when people told you about the things that he's done. You said, I don't know that. I need to research it. Anybody who knows the name Hassan Piker knows half a dozen of the bad shit he's done.
I was
dealing ignorance.
Okay.
I was dealing ignorance.
One more question before we end. Destiny.
Wait, no, wait.
We're getting to the Hasan thing right now. I
can we
promise you.
actually-
Let me
3
get to
hours,
the
it's
Hasan
dinner
thing.
time.
I could get to the Hasan thing. You said that you would vote for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trump over Hasan. Can you explain why?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, you said.
The issue that I have with that Twitter thread is that like there's a meaningful difference, and because it was like moving between all of these at some point in time. Of are you talking about casting the deciding vote? Are you talking about who you're more ideologically aligned with? Are you talking about voting for somebody assuming they would have full control of the party? Or are you talking about voting for somebody assuming they would have full control of the party and a full backing of the entire government? Like all of these questions have different
Hassan's
answers.
party wins. Hasan wins with Hassan's
Yeah,
party.
no, but I'm saying like, are you saying like if Hasan were to win and was able to enact a significant portion of his agenda,
Yes.
then I would vote for Trump easily. That's not even a question.
Okay. Why?
Same.
I want to give it to Pisco. What about you? Again, Trump.
Yeah.
Hasan.
So first, let me just clarify the question as Stephen did. I never intended to ask that question of Hasan without constraints. I think it's fucking delusional to think that that's how you initially understood that question, given the fact that embedded in your response, your initial response.
The other
was
question
not an
doesn't make
answer.
sense, Pisco. The
No,
other
let
question doesn't
Pisco
make sense.
answer.
If
Let
Hassan's
Pisco
irrelevant, but he
answer.
wins political power.
So-
If
so
Hassan's
this is-
irrelevant, but he wins political power, then that vote doesn't fucking matter. So how is that your point?
So the conclusion that Stephen was interpreting that question to be Hasan without constraints is preposterous, given the fact that he was referencing as one of the reasons to vote for Trump over Hasan in that scenario, Trump's constraints over the Trump during his constrained period in the 4 years. He said, look at, Trump wasn't able to accomplish what he did in those 4 years. We haven't had to destroy the country. Clearly he was referencing, Trump with constraints to Hasan with constraints. That's obviously what the question asked. That's what your people understood when they voted Hasan.
The constraints on
draft.
Hasan would be significantly greater though than the constraints on Trump.
No, but the whole point is no one was understanding that question. You included when I initially asked it. I mean, without constraint.
Okay, wait. So just to be clear, so your question was, would I prefer to elect Donald Trump into a system today where he has undying cult-like support from the entire Republican establishment, okay, from all the media and from the Supreme Court? Would I prefer Donald Trump to be elected, or would I prefer Hasan Piker, who probably would barely even be able to be sat as president of the United States because even the Democratic Party wouldn't support him?
Question sucks.
Wait, I want to hear you. That's the question that you were legitimately asking?
So the question I was asking is who you would vote for president of the United States, carrying all the assumptions that you would normally take in any of those situations where, like when you're asking who you vote for president. I wasn't implying, obviously, complete dictatorial control. Anyone who thinks that that's how I was.
Were you implying a similar level of control of what Trump has now?
I was implying whatever. I was agnostic as to like Congress. I was agnostic as to these
How
other
can
factors.
you be agnostic to that? These are the most important things.
No. But what I wasn't asking, and what's clear that you didn't understand.
No, don't say what you weren't asking. What was the actual question?
The question was the normal set of assumptions of
there are no normal set of assumptions. Hasan isn't even a political figure. He's not a politician.
So if I were to ask you who would you vote for, Counterpoints or Trump, how would you answer? You would have a set of assumptions, wouldn't you?
No, I would ask you for clarification. What do you mean? Like assuming that?
Yeah, we're voting for a president of the United States constrained in the normal ways that a president is, and
constrained in the normal ways. Like I don't know if you can do anything. No, stop! Shut up! It's not being obtuse. Pisco is being obtuse. I'm asking a very clear and obvious question, right? If you're talking about what does it mean to vote for somebody, and you say with the normal constraints, as Hasan said earlier, Hasan wouldn't be elected. So are you talking about a country that would have the political environment that would elect Hasan Piker? Here, you know what? Here's a better one. Given the same constraints on the system, would you rather have Donald Trump as a president or Stalin as the president?
Yeah, I think probably Trump. Yeah.
Then you agree with me.
Wait. No, I don't agree with you.
What is the disagreement?
Because I think the grounding of your question fucking sucks.
I have no evidence that Hasan is like Stalin.
I just don't know anything about. Yeah, I mean, like that's just valid. That's literally his political ideology.
Do you want me to read you the evidence? I can read you the evidence.
No. In the ways that matter. Like Stalin.
I could answer that.
So you think that Stalin and Hasan is a genocidal freak? That's what you think?
Yep.
I don't know if I'd say genocide, but Hasan is a Stalinist, like a Marxist-Leninist. Yes.
No, but he's not similar. Do you think that Hasan would enact a genocide in this country?
It could happen, yes.
Hold on.
Yes. What's your evidence that Hassan would enact genocide
against
in this country?
landlords?
Because they Marxist-Leninists, and because when other vanguard parties are coming to power, like in fucking China and in the Soviet Union, they ended up having genocide.
Just to be clear,
you think that Hassan is pro-genocide in this country?
You realize Hassan?
I don't know if Stalin or Mao were pro-genocide. That's a stupid question. You're trying to do this yes or no shit on complicated political issues because you don't understand any of the politics.
Hassan has said he wanted to kill landlords. He wants to kill landlords.
Do you think that Stalin was pro-genocide? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
No, you're fucking retarded. You're an idiot. You're a fucking retard. No, stupid.
Wait, Connor, you agree with me that Stalin is pro-genocide, correct?
That's great. He's a Republican. I expect him to agree with that.
I believe. Hold on. Holy shit! I can actually answer questions, unlike you, Spurgs. Yeah, Stalin wanted to fucking kill the fuck out of the Ukrainians. However, Pisco, what I'll answer directly to you is that I think if Hassan was put into power the same way that Stalin was, he 100% would create thought crimes. He 100% would incarcerate people without trial. He would 100% do mass executions of ideological enemies, namely capitalists. And I have evidence for that.
Yeah, he said he wants to kill all the landlords.
He said he wants to kill all the landlords.
Not just that. I literally have, in preparation for this debate, I wrote down like 30.
So I'll ask you, Connor. If Trump had total power and he had no checks, do you think he would kill political rivals?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. So what's the disparity there?
Okay. Hold on. I want an opportunity to answer this question because I feel like you guys were talking past each other. Okay, and I get we're wrapping. All right. So with Trump right now, we have he's a cult-like leader within the Republican Party, but he does have some institutional checks on his power. For the sake of the hypothetical, I presumed in order for Hassan to be of similar power, he would have a similar situation. He's not in total control. We still have Republican checks on the limits of his power, but he has a cult-like following within the left. Okay, that's what I presumed. And what I would say is that his sense of isolationism, his sense of pro-terrorism, his sense of wanting to backstab the Western world, him hating mixed economy capitalism, I think he would be just as large of a danger or more of a danger than Donald Trump. And I can back that up factually.
Okay. I mean, I disagree.
Hassan himself said like 50 times he's a Marxist-Leninist. Like, it sounds like openly, outwardly said that.
Hang on a second. Wait, Destiny. You acknowledge that I never said he wasn't a Marxist-Leninist.
But that's essentially like the blueprint for what Stalin did. Yes, it's the he's on the program, like championing like Lenin's literature and shit, like overthrowing states and shit. Yeah,
Stephen. I never said he wasn't a Marxist-Leninist. And when I was talking, I want to address, because you put a video of it where I was like addressing some people who are following Hassan and getting his clips, basically where they were talking about this re-education camps. And what was told to me is this is an example of Hassan explicitly in favor of re-education camps. I want to be clear about something. I have now seen the clips of Hassan calling himself a Marxist-Leninist. People have brought that to my attention. I asked these people, do you have clips of himself calling himself a Marxist-Leninist? What's the evidence? What's the strongest evidence? At no point, and there's even something where explicitly I said this, did I say Hassan wasn't a Marxist-Leninist? And I just want to repeat for like the 10th time, I do not like Hassan Piker. He does. And
you don't think, if you think he's an ML, what would the significant difference be between his administration and Stalin's?
Well, because I do think that Hassan
or
is
Lenin,
not,
if we want Lenin instead.
No, Stalin. No, do Stalin.
No, Stalin. We'll do Stalin because So I think the key distinctions are, I think that if you take a look at the different personalities, that Stalin seems like a worse overall person, has worse people on his ear. I think that Hassan has some friends who I think are generally like good people like Adam Friedland. People.
Okay, here's a question. First of all,
let me finish. And then in terms of ideology,
in the cabinet.
Wait. I think you agree.
You like Adam Friedland? Defense. Adam Friedland would not be part of Hassan's fucking communist
culturally,
government.
I think culturally he's much more likely to be more moderate in terms of the genocidal stuff that Stalin was able to get away with because of the American culture that he's a part of. And so there, and I think also, by the way, that in the context, if we're actually putting real constraints on it, I think the military and the police would be much less apt to do abuses under a Hasan Piker administration than they would under a Trump administration.
Here's a question. If Hassan was the president of the United States and he could push a button and say, Israel has become a one state right now, that will probably lead to a genocide of the Jews there until the majority of them leave. Do you think that he would push that button?
Wait, push the button to do what? Sorry?
To turn Israel, Palestine into a single state that would probably result in the next 5 years of some genocide or genocidal campaign against the Jews there until all of them basically leave. Do you think Hassan would push that button?
Yes. Would you push the button for Israel's conduct right now? Do you support Israel conduct right now?
Fuck no.
Okay,
but also this isn't about me.
You're willing to.
Hold on.
Trump is willing to abide.
Would you vote for Trump or Destiny as president?
Israel's
Trump or
conduct
Destiny?
right now.
Okay.
I would vote for Destiny. I'm honest about that.
Hold on. No, wait. But hold on. You just said that Stalin being genocidal was a key differentiator between him and Hassan. So Hassan would be genocidal in some cases, right? Depending on who the people are. He probably was into Polish people, right? He said as much.
But you're asking in a context in which for Hassan the trade-off is genocide. The current genocide, he views it as a current genocide. What's going on in Gaza, and I guess the question would just be like, which of the genocide is entailed no matter what.
Sure, and for Stalin, it was: do we have enough crops to feed the people in Moscow? Do we have enough crops for the people in?
But in terms of the I think there is something different in terms of the internal potentiality for a genocide. And I just want to be clear about something. I don't support Hassan Piker. So let's get to the prescription. I am not trying to build a bridge with Hassan Piker. I don't support Hassan Piker's ideology. I'm not protecting Hassan Piker. How am I protecting Hassan Piker?
Sure. If you want to run the last topic, so like at this point in time, do you admit that there is absolutely zero evidence whatsoever that there was any kind of discriminatory activity towards him in his whole TSA adventure, and then he lied at multiple points about it?
Wait. So I agree he lied, but you and I both agree, didn't you? Didn't you agree that the main reason, the most probable thing that happened on anything else, you said this, was that viewpoint discrimination played a role in his rejection of global entry. You did say that. You said it.
No.
We had it on record.
No. We were right here. Talk to me. What was the viewpoint discrimination?
Yeah, I'm just saying what you said. What you said was.
No, you need to say what I said. You need to quote me from 2 months ago. I'm right here.
So if you want to get me what he said, we can play those.
You said something that Hassan said was the most likely reason that he was denied or had his global entry revoked.
That's not viewpoint discrimination, though. Okay. That's not viewpoint discrimination. That's content discrimination. If you talk about killing politicians, it doesn't matter. Hold on. Do you think that if Hassan Piker had talked about killing Democrats or whatever, that he also wouldn't have been flagged maybe on global entry if he had a tweet blow up about having a Democratic politician killed?
I'm not sure for the purpose of this.
Wait. You're not sure. You said you were 100% vindicated. That you'd been subject to viewpoint discrimination.
No. I am vindicated on that. I'm saying I'm not sure as between a Democratic candidate, what I think would probably happen is that no, he wouldn't be. I don't know is the answer to that. I truly don't know. But
then what's the viewpoint discrimination?
Let me talk about this, right? So content-based restrictions are also subject to strict scrutiny. Do you know that?
Yes, they can be, but viewpoint discrimination is even stricter. It's even stricter. No. Viewpoint discrimination is almost never going to pass because you're not just saying you can't say you can't kill a politician. You're saying you can't kill a certain type of politician.
My inclination is that if Hassan said that about Bernie Sanders, he wouldn't have had his global entry revoked. That is my inclination, but regardless, it doesn't matter. It's overdetermined. When I say it's overdetermined, I mean it doesn't matter. Like content-based restrictions are subject to strict scrutiny.
For laws, sure, okay. Yes.
But you
for
and I
expedited
both agreed.
Entry to global entry, I'm not sure. Probably not.
Let's just be clear about something. You did agree into that. Something he said before was the most likely reason that he had global entry revoked, correct?
Yes. Do you agree that you can say things that maybe would make it worth it to have your global entry revoked?
Yes, there are certain things that you could say that would have it, but okay.
Cool.
But
do you think that one of those things might be talking about killing a politician?
Well, it depends if that is a true, if it is a true threat or not. If it's a true threat, no. So for example, if someone takes something that you said, Stephen, if someone said something that you said, and like what you said, for example, about some of these murders.
Hold on, let me head you off here.
If I got
an email and I found out that I got kicked out of global entry because of what I said about the fucking firefighter or whatever, I'd probably be like, sure, yeah. No shit. You think I'm gonna go on the internet? You think I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't believe that I can't make death threats about people and they're gonna kick me out of the expedited security screening list?
What if they denied you? What if they denied you a gun on the basis of that opinion?
That would be much different. That's a much stronger. Wait. You're talking about. Hold on. You're talking about a constitutionally guaranteed right versus expedited screening through airplane security. We're not even talking about being.
So let's move on. So what about a driver's license then?
No.
Why not?
This is not. This is not.
Why not?
Not relevant.
Why not?
What evidence do we have that Hassan was discriminated against for like for a political reason, for something that we wouldn't ordinarily expect somebody to be kicked out of an expedited security screening program for? Do we have any evidence of that whatsoever? Yes or no?
So I take none of that. Yes. The fact that the most likely statement that you've attributed, and which I probably agree, is like either the Rick Scott comment or the comments on the Houthis in Palestine and Israel. I take all of those to be content-based restriction, viewpoint discrimination that would be insidious and unconstitutional.
Okay, so
Wait a second.
You think that somebody outwardly supporting a terrorist group that's declared as a terrorist group that they shouldn't be allowed to be removed from expedited airport security screening?
Yes. So let me ask you a question.
That's fine. Okay.
Wait, let me ask you the question. So with respect to a driver's license, do you think that
I'm not. This is not even.
So you're not going to answer. So I'm going to ask you.
If you want to talk about
so you want to answer because you know it's
driver's license,
no, it's now.
No, because it's unbelievable. No, pivot.
I'm going to ask you the question.
I'm dodging the pivot. That's right.
What's different? What's different?
I dodged the pivot. I dodged the pivot.
I dodged the pivot.
Let
the pivot.
Let's actually.
I can already say I've already seen this entire conversation. I'm going to say, having a driver's license is a right. You go, well, it's not really. It's a privilege. Yeah, and then is it expedited screening a privilege? It's like, is it the exact same thing then? He's being discriminated. I've seen the entire argument, and I can already see how fucking retarded it is.
Hey, pussy, let's go through it.
You already admitted that you don't think somebody should be kicked off of an expedited security list on an airplane because they talk about killing politicians. That's crazy. I don't think I think it's fucking retarded. We're good. That's all I got on it. I'm good on it. You got it.
So you don't have to answer it. You don't have to answer it. I'm just going to put it out there. So this is the question. Because of the support for a terrorist organization, should someone be denied a driver's license? Because a driver's license is not a right; it is a privilege. It's purely at the discretion of the state. If it wanted to, can kick you off a driver's license for something trivial, for a parking offense, for anything. Really, there are tons of different restrictions that don't have to be, totally tailored. Wait,
totally tailored. Wait. What does strict scrutiny entail, Pisco?
Yeah. You need a compelling purpose.
What would the compelling interest be to deny somebody a driver's license? What would be the compelling reason to deny a driver's license because they support a terrorist group?
I don't have it because I think it's on all fours of global entry.
Do you think
I don't have it. I don't have it because it's on all fours. Yeah, what is it?
The fact that it might make them somebody who's worth screening in the ordinary manner that we screen people to come back to the United States?
Wait. Hang on a second. So, as a security threat, it is a compelling purpose for global entry, but as a security threat, it's not a compelling purpose for a driver's license? Explain that.
Because I think that there are a lot of people that can have some kind of support for terrorists or whatever that can drive them in a car. I think that the interest on the side of the citizen for having a driver's license driving around just because you have a fucking support or whatever for some terrorist thing doesn't mean they can revoke your driver's license. I don't think that would be.
Terrorists use cars to kill people. Terrorists use cars to kill people. Islamic terrorists use cars to kill people, just like they use.
What was the other part of the strict scrutiny analysis that you said? Narrowly tailored. Do you think that revoking a driver's license for somebody is as narrowly tailored as not allowing somebody on an expedited security screening list?
Well, can someone travel?
Exactly. No, you're correct, Wick. To make it more comparable, if you were to talk about banning him from all airline travel, I'd say, well, now hold on. Now we've got that is not narrowly tailored. Now we're talking about something completely different. If you wanted to compare this to going in an expedited line at a DMV to skip the ordinary background check, then sure, maybe we could talk. If you support terrorists, you don't get the expedited DMV line. But to talk about just having a driver's license and to compare that to the expedited screening list, that is not correct because you were right. For strict scrutiny, it has to be narrowly tailored on a compelling state interest. And I believe that it is narrowly tailored just to kick somebody off of global entry with a compelling state interest, which
for their speech, for the otherwise protected speech.
It's not. Their speech is not being done. They're not making their speech illegal. They're not crafting a law against the speech in any way, size, shape, or form. No, they're not. They're just not having them on the expedited security list, which is not even remotely comparable to having a driver's license, and you fucking know that.
Okay. So respect to Muslims, if you had a ban, and just to finish this, respect to Muslims who have you would agree a higher incidence of Islamic terrorism, correct? Muslims.
They might. Yeah, probably.
Definitely,
I don't know if that's true or not. Don't white nationalists have more? Don't white nationalists do more terrorism in the United States than fucking Muslims?
Yeah. But specifically, okay. So let's take white nationalists. Do you think it would be acceptable to say white nationalists need not apply for global entry?
If it was like something like, let's say it was like the Proud Boys, I would say probably yeah. That's probably yeah for expedited security screening. Probably yeah. Well, I've already admitted that. I've already said that my comments online, and I even joke about it. That if my fucking global entry, I get it. Yeah. It's global entry.
Regardless of this, we have a different opinion about the right here. I'm not being if I'm just like a hedge.
You were on a 2-week total vindication lap about that. You're totally right on this issue.
We have a disagreement. So, Stephen, you and I have this disagreement about how much the right should protect, what we're okay with in terms of viewpoint discrimination. None of this is saying that we have to be unhinged with respect to giving Hasan a pass. I have a more protective view of the First Amendment than you do in this specific instance. Why isn't that not an honest disagreement? Why does it have to become I'm being a fucking poster boy for Hassan Piker? Why does it become
because an honest disagreement would say, I think that maybe you should be able to support or give verbal support over terrorist organizations, and I don't think this is a good reason to kick somebody off of an expedited screening list. But that wasn't your position. Your position was he was explicitly targeted by the government because of speech that he's made in order to kick him off this list just to harass him individually.
You know, so you agree with that, but you just think that you have a different sense of whether that's okay or not. You agree with that factual component that it's the most likely outcome, and you just disagree.
But your
on how
thing
to
was not.
interpret
You
that.
said your interpretation was he was explicitly and specifically targeted because of stuff that you thought was like clearly violative of.
Yes. So we have a different
we don't even know the truth of it. Could have literally been a random screaming.
I want to give Econoboy and Counterpoints a chance to leave if this is what we're going to do.
Well, sure. Here, I just a question. Wait. Just one final question. What evidence could there be? Like, could it have been a random screening because it was 20 minutes long and nothing happened? You agree that nothing bad happened besides him getting asked questions for 20 minutes?
When you say could, what do you mean? Do you mean like could it be, like logically? Is it possible that yes? It's possible.
Could it have just been? Sure, what's more likely?
I think it's way more likely that his stop at the global entry line had to do because his global entry was revoked. Do you agree?
No.
Okay. I think that being in global entry line, when you don't have global entry, that you're being stopped, it's most likely because you don't have global entry, right?
Have you ever traveled internationally before?
Yes, I have.
If you go to the wrong line, they don't pull you aside for 20 minutes of questioning. They tell you to go to the other line.
Yeah, so
I don't know why you think going into the global entry line, we got to pull this guy aside for expedited questioning. They would just say, hey, you don't have global entry, go to the other line.
So
no,
just
it had
showing the
probably
screen,
nothing to
give
do
me a
with it.
2-sentence summary of the debate.
Hold on. Okay.
Liberals and progressives are being
going to go to
useful
closing
dumbasses for socialists.
Gang. This has been a show. We're gonna give the mic to each of these individuals to give closing statements and where you can find them. I have links to all their stuff in my YouTube description. If you've enjoyed the show for whatever reason, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We do stuff like this all the time. It's very fun. I'm gonna keep streaming after. They can stay if they want. They can leave if they want. I don't care. I have some things to say, but we're gonna give it first to Counterpoints, then we're gonna let Pete go out the last word, and then we'll just go around. Go ahead, Counterpoints.
Yeah, so I came into this conversation hoping to discuss the fact that I feel like progressives are sometimes useful idiots for socialists. I also had a pretty clear definition of socialism that I asserted half a dozen times. Instead, I got accused of being a conspiracy nut and that I didn't know history. I feel like I've consistently demonstrated that I have a decent command of history. I also think I have a decent command of the definitions. And while I am a fan of Pisco and Econoboy, despite, maybe any mean words that I said tonight. I do feel like they're being usefully stupid for infinitely more nefarious characters. And that's the position I started with. That's the position that I'm going to end with. If you guys want to fight at a later date or time, I'm happy to do so. And then if you want to find me, Counterpoints 40K is my main channel. That's my Warhammer channel. Counterpoints Politics is where I post the VODs for my streams. Monday through Friday, I am live on a channel called Valor Media Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling Network Common Spelling. Type that into your search bar, subscribe to it, watch me from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. EST. And then on Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel, Counterpoints Politics. But I parasocially love you. I still love you guys, even though I chatted mad shit and used homophobic language. So looking forward to the next one.
Hey, thanks for being here, Counterpoints. We really appreciate you. Go check him out. He took the time out of his day to come on our show. Give him that courtesy. Destiny, please.
I think it's a good question to ask who we want to include in our Democratic Party apparatus. I think that the majority of this has to do with us as being media figures, so people in the media. I don't think there's anything wrong with including people who have some fundamental base values in agreement that generally revolve around concepts related to liberalism and free market enterprise. I think those are hugely important parts of the United States. I think they're an important part of wealth generation. Even when Econoboy brings up, Norway, and he talks about all the money that they get from their global wealth fund, like the majority of this is invested in literally international stocks from capitalist ran companies. I think that like the defense of capitalism and free market enterprise is an essential part of the United States. I think that if you want to talk about reforms or redistribution of wealth, I think all of that is great. All of that can happen within the basket of a liberal capitalist country. I don't think that we should seek to keep people inside of our movement who would literally dispossess the majority of our movement if they had the power to do so. When people are talking about things like re-education camps, and it's not just random people, but it is literally some of the largest figures that represent that label in the media sphere, I'm way more likely to look to that person. Like Pisco said, I look at use definitions of words, not just strict definitions of words, that I am to look to the Communist Manifesto. And when you've got people like that, or people like Aaron saying that they would ban all forms of private enterprise or all forms of private property, I don't think that these are people that you need to ideologically align yourself with, just the same way that I wouldn't ideologically align myself with some third positionist Nazi because he says he also wants social health care. He just only wants it for white people. So he's willing to have it for everybody first until we kick all the black people out. I think that when we talk about who we should include in our movement, I think one of the most important things we should look for is reciprocity. I think that this conversation would be totally fucking different if there were all of these socialist shows where people like Crystal and Kyle were arguing back and forth with each other about like, hey, don't you think we go like a little bit too hard on the liberals sometimes? Or don't you think that maybe we should be like a little bit nicer to some of these people rather than who the fuck can we primary in the Democratic Party? Who are these like moderate liberals that we can excise? Or like the last show that I just watched before coming on here where Crystal Ball is literally excoriating a Michigan senator because she doesn't have the most pure position possible on fucking Israel-Palestine. So I don't think that we should align ourselves with a group of people who say cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds, and liberals always side with fascists. And I think that if you were looking at people that you wanted to align with, look for people who are also building a bridge your way, not just people who are looking to funnel people off of your movement.
Okay, thank you for being here. Check out his channel. I don't really need to promote him. He's the biggest guy here. Econoboy, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Econoboy, econoboy.substack.com. If you're interested in any of the writing that I do, if you want to know what my actual positions are, I did literally write them down in an article series that's now posted. So if you're interested in learning what my real positions are, go over there, econoboy.substack.com. And what I would say about the summary of the debate is this. Number one, Connor clearly actually doesn't know shit about history because he seemed completely unfamiliar with the entire history of actually existing socialist governments outside.
I know this is
of
outros, but go fuck yourself.
I didn't interrupt you. You said I was stupid. I mean, we're just throwing it back. Connor, calm down. So the point is, Connor doesn't actually know shit about history, to be fair, because he was completely unaware about the entire history of actually existing socialist governments in Oceania, and also Europe. So that was just the thing that I tried to add to the debate. When it comes to Connor, when it comes to Destiny, I feel like Destiny really didn't understand my point about Norway and like Nordic institutions. My only point about that is that the U.S. could build domestic sovereign wealth funds easier than Norway because the U.S. has a lot of financial capital available to it, whereas Norway doesn't. Like Norway literally, like the capacity of like the Norwegian financial capital market couldn't handle all their oil wealth. To the extent that it could, I would argue that it probably should, but that's a totally different discussion. On the actual topic of the debate, here's the last thing that I'll say. I do appreciate that it seems like Destiny clarified and narrowed his position to a substantial degree, that we shouldn't treat everyone who uses the socialist label as a Nazi. Instead, we should treat certain people in the socialist left media space as Nazis, quote unquote, and kind of exclude them from the movement. I pointed out several times that that is actually a statement that all four of us, all five of us, I guess, actually agree with. That to the extent that people in the media are like militantly anti-democratic party and just like really bad faith with Democrats all the time, and they're trying to just occupy democratic spaces for their own ends and not to try and push forward an electoral movement, we should exclude them from the inner party and from strategic discussions and from platforms like the DNC. I've only said my position, I'll repeat, is that we should take advantage of their platforms insofar as Democrats actually want to like participate in their platforms, not them participate in our platforms. And I think that was just a useful clarification. To the extent that Destiny and Wick are interested, I look forward to the socialism versus capitalism debate in the future, because it seems like the people want that as well. But I'd have fun doing it. Anyway, it was really fun, guys, and there was a lot of useful clarification, I feel like, and yelling between Destiny and Pisco. And I love you too, Connor, even though you're a bitch. No, I'm just kidding. But I do love you too.
Okay, thank you for being here. You can check out his Substack. I have a link to it in my YouTube description, and you can find him streaming on Live and Learn and other podcasts. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Pisco.
Yeah, as I predicted, I don't think there's a ton of substantive disagreement here. I think at the heart of this is some kind of semantic confusion or a debate about what the term socialism means, what the term communist means, and these different subcategories of people. And there, I just think that there's a bizarre interpretation and special pleading really from Connor and Steven, that socialism doesn't include single payer. Well, if use is meaning, that's, people call that socialized medicine. Socialism doesn't include places like, China. People use that term that way. The major socialist figures in the Democratic Party wouldn't be considered by most people who use the term socialism to be socialists themselves. That's not how people use the term, but that's kind of a semantic disparity without much significance to it. But actually check out the substantive disagreement here. When it comes to Marxist-Leninists and the people, when we use the term like tanky to refer to people who like substantively don't believe in our constitutional order, or who substantively want to get rid of the rights that we hold dear, there's a full agreement. We don't agree that those people should be making decisions. We don't agree that they should be in the halls of power. I think that we agree that like we should interact with them in terms of where it's useful for Democrats to do that. I think that that's fine. So I don't think that there's actually much disagreement on that front at all. But it seems like there's like a special pleading, I'm going to say, for the kind of prescription. Okay, we should kick out people with a socialist label, but just in the media space, not people who are politicians, if they're politicians head of the ticket, you shouldn't let the socialist label scare you away. But certainly, like, we should kick out Econoboy from Live and Learn because he uses the socialist term label. But is that more of a problem with the name of the show being Live and Learn? Is that the problem, or is the problem that he uses the socialist label at all? And so what actually is the problem here? Is the problem that we were too tonally respectful to the vanguard when we were discussing, I want to sort of stress again, how to best implement the Biden agenda? It wasn't a discussion about socialism versus capitalism. We weren't saying like, oh yeah, maybe we should have a vanguard party. It was a discussion about like tactics that Biden could use to implement his own agenda. And what, tone policing, that like we were fucking pussyfooting around when there's big substantive disagreement, and we gave our back into hutch on discrete points, like on the Manchin point, on the Joe Biden legislation accomplishment points, on the point about the student loan stuff. And if that's the case, why doesn't it apply equally to Stephen and Connor, who sometimes, yeah, they disagree. I agree. They disagree when they bring on some of these conservative figures, but they play nice with them. Fundamentally, it's a respectful conversation. You talk to Ben Shapiro, respectful. Talk to Myron Gaines, respectful. Even, talk to Nick Fuentes at a certain time, respectful conversation. So is it really just the tone about it? We didn't get too much into the specific examples of us like pussyfooting for Hassan Piker. I want to just stress, I do not like Hassan Piker. I never said Hassan Hamas Piker, whatever you want to call him, wasn't a Marxist-Leninist. On the specific semantic disagreement about like Aaron Schrader rating communism versus Marxist-Leninism, I think that's an interesting semantic discussion. I think that Stephen and Counterpoints are probably wrong about that, but I don't think that that's anything about what's going on here. This is not about those distinctions. It's not about our distinctions on the First Amendment and should viewpoint discrimination matter for support of terrorist groups or anything like that. What's going on here is, frankly, this is my opinion, realistically, these guys hate Hassan for probably good reasons, some good reasons. And so we're all just trying to get at that and calibrate our ideology and our rules and our prescriptive rules on that specific thing. And I don't think any of it has to do with like major substantive disagreements on the merits. And I think that was shown today.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, gang. You can leave if
Damn, did we just lose Steven?
I think he got bored. It's probably true.
That was rude.
It is what it is.
I'm a professional. I stayed till the end.
Well, thank you. But if you need to leave, you may. I have some people who want to come in and talk and things like that. You could stay if you'd like. But yeah.
Are any of them Aaron?
Why not?
Why not? Okay, let's bring on some people.
I got two callers.
Yeah.
Oh shit, it's Dev. I guess I got to stay and
Dev
wait.
in History Speaks. Couple of famous caller-ins.
Famous caller-inners. Okay, hi guys. You're live.
And you're muted. Both of yous.
Yeah, well, that's on your ends, gang. I'm not sure. We're going to get to Super Chats at the end of the stream, gang. I will read Super Chats. It will be at the end of the stream. Don't worry.
Hello.
You did not miss the
How's it
Super
going?
Chats. Yeah. Hello, Dev.
That was a shit show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It was pretty great.
I thought it was
I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
And Destiny,
Okay.
thank you for the raid on YouTube. I really appreciate you. Okay.
Oh, that's sweet.
Destiny's watchers are watching. Okay.
Dev, I am hungry. Do you have anything that I need to address?
I don't think so. If you want to go eat.
Okay. I parasocially love you guys. Looking forward to the next fight. Sorry for using homophobic language and ableist language. I'll catch you next time.
Okay. See you later.
See you,
Okay.
man.
So what you guys are here. You have some questions for Econoboy or Pisco. They're the ones that stayed.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Econoboy.
please. Hit it.
I've read your Substack. I know what's going on. I
believe when Dev says he read a thing, I believe him. He probably really did read that entire thing.
So when you say that this is socialism, I don't buy it. It's sovereign wealth funds, and it's from what I understand, it's like publicly owned stock portfolios. I don't see the socialism.
It's collective ownership of the means of production.
Okay, but like that could
That
be
could mean
almost
a lot of
anything,
different
though.
things.
That's-
I agree.
It's a broad term. Why are you guys like immune to like people use the term? Do you agree? People use the term to refer to like socialized medicine, and that is how it's used. Do you agree that single payer healthcare is socialist policy?
I don't think so. I wouldn't put it there.
People use that term to refer to those kinds of things, right?
Well, but Dev, really quick,
Yeah,
Pisco.
but
Dev,
people are retarded, though.
Well, Dev, for instance, okay, I don't think it's retarded to say that single-payer healthcare is like a socialist institution. For instance, right? Many countries do have privately owned for-profit insurance companies. However, in like your country, Canada, that's a publicly owned service, right? Like it's a socially owned means of production. The thing that they're producing is the service of providing insurance.
Well, no. The insurance is funded by taxes, but the actual hospitals and the clinics, they're all privately owned. Yeah.
All right. No. And I'm not making any broader of a claim.
Insurance,
The insurance industry, and I understand you guys have some private options. I'm just saying that, there's some private schools, but it's mostly public schools. You could have totally private insurance. You don't. You have mostly publicly owned and democratically accountable insurance. And I'm not saying that makes Canada a socialist country, but it makes Canada a country with one more socialist institution than other countries that have private insurance.
See, whenever I've debated other socialists who weren't you on this topic, I've pointed out that you could then go over to Nazi Germany, and they had a lot of similar things where the state was involved in production, and they go no, and they really don't want to give that up.
Policies. Wait, they did have some socialist policies.
My answer to that would be that I think there is probably a meaningful semantic disagreement about what it means to own something, right? So I think that where most socialists are coming from is they would typically say, these are like the same types that would say like the USSR isn't like really socialism because it wasn't democratic in nature. It wasn't true horizontal ownership and like democratic ownership, public ownership, because the public didn't really like own and hold accountable the institutions of Nazi Germany, even though they were government owned. And so I think there probably is a meaningful difference in the type of ownership that the Nazi government provided to its citizens and the type of ownership that like the Canadian government provides to its citizens. But to the extent that we just want to say like, hey, like anything that's owned like by the government, I guess is like a form of collective ownership that falls in the socialist canon. Like, yeah, places like the USSR or like you could even say like Nazi Germany had those kinds of institutions, but semantically, I do think that there's probably a meaningful difference, but I'm not going to fight you that hard on the label. I just happen to think that when it comes to collective ownership of the means of production, the model that I provide is certainly a vast collectivization of the means of production, and that makes it, that makes our society much more socialist than it was before my model is implemented, essentially.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just that this definition of socialism means that it really does boil down to the right-wing meme of socialism is when the government does stuff.
Well, Deb, would you agree? Would you agree that I keep using the Labor government because it's just the one I'm most familiar with. Would you agree that the Attlee government was a socialist government that engaged in the process of implementing socialism? And the way that they did that was nationalizing industries.
I'm not sure. So he was a Fabian, right?
I do want to maybe broaden the discussion just a little bit because it's going to be
it's semantic. This is what I mean. It is semantic. So what is the actual disagreement here?
Really quick, this to be fair is not semantic. I'm just asking Dev if he recognizes that like literally Attlee called himself a socialist, and the socialists in the Labor Party they at least thought that they were doing socialism by the policies that they enacted.
Well, I do know that they viewed themselves as that, but I'm not sure how you view yourself as all that important, because I know that you guys think that...
What's the right meaning of a word, Dev? Wait, Dev, what's the right meaning of a word? What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by what do I mean?
Like, yeah, so you're like, it's not true socialism. Like, what is a word... What does a word objectively mean, separate apart from how it's used by like some mass of people or by experts in a given context? I guess I don't have. Do you have an ideology for what words should mean?
Okay, I understand that point. This is the definition as used. I get it, but like if I were to come in here and call myself a fascist, but not actually believe in anything fascist, then it's like, well, I'm using the word that way. It's like, well, it doesn't matter, right? Like, there are meanings to things.
No, Dev, I would agree that there's an agglomeration of facts that we would typically associate with like what words mean, obviously. But I would say that my point in this panel, and my point in so many of the people, especially in Destiny's community, that are saying, what is Econoboi talking about? These governments weren't socialists, they were social democrats, despite the fact that they were contemporaries of socialist movements in the USSR and Mao. They made arguments against those forms of socialism. They took their own power and did their own version of socialism. And even going all the way back to Marx, contemporaries of Marx debated Marx on what socialism really meant, because there's obviously a diverse tradition of what this word really, really means, right? But there's a big tradition, just like there's a big tradition of what capitalism really means.
Or Christianity, or any of these labels.
The last thing I was going to say.
Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. I agree.
I would say the single biggest through line to what socialism means, the largest universe of socialism, is the collective ownership of the means of production. which is a project that all of those governments that I referenced engaged in, and it's the project that I'm engaged in by proposing my model on my Substack.
So, if that's the definition you're using, then most governments have been socialist in some way or another.
I agree.
Well, then it's not that useful of a label to describe different types
I just
of
want to be clear.
governments.
That's not what we are talking about when we use the word socialist. That's not what I am talking about, right? That's not what I don't think Dev is referring to that. I don't think a lot of
as long as we understand the differences of the words that we're using, that's fine. I'm just saying that, like, I understand that
if I understand that because the panel's over, right? And I know I jump in a lot, right? But I can jump in more. Okay,
yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
The problem I'm having specifically, and we've talked about this before, I believe, at least in tangentially, Econoboy, is I think that you are laundering the term in such a way that bad actors are saying, yeah, I'm a socialist too, like Econoboy socialist, but I don't believe they're actually honest in what they're saying.
Yeah,
I think that I frankly think Straighter Raid, and she's welcome to come on at this point. Jump backstage, we can pull you in, right? And you can answer for your crimes, so to speak. But I think Straighter was just telling the truth that a lot of people who use the term socialist are just communists.
I've already agreed that there's going to be a margin of people that have like ulterior motives when they use the label. However, what I would say is this: I understand that to a lot of people listening, it sounds confusing and arguably like it arguably sounds like ridiculous to say that every government does some kind of socialism when they do like collective ownership of the means of production, right? However, what we have to understand is two things at once can be true. That socialism and capitalism, in some senses, are binaries, right? That capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production. Socialism is the collective ownership of the means of production.
Sure, it's a spectrum to an extent. Okay? Every economy is a spectrum economy. I get it.
Well, it's not just that they're a spectrum, but there's also a process by which socialism comes into being. That we didn't have socialism or socialist institutions, and then eventually in a socialist ideal, every institution is a socialist institution. And in doing the process of bringing socialism into being, that is to bring privately owned means of production into collective ownership. And so during that process, you're going to end up like we live today. And I'm not a historical materialist. I'm not saying it's inevitable. Like we live in today, though, where pretty much every society is a mixture of capitalist and socialist institutions. And that's the only point that I'm making.
Sorry for interrupting you, Econoboy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just have a few questions for the panel. So first, Econoboy, do you actually prioritize? So you're socialist or whatever. Do you prioritize liberalism and democratic choice over socialism or the public ownership of the means of production? Because traditionally, the first principle, of course, was public ownership of the means of production, and that's also how you frankly get so many of these authoritarian regimes, because they're not willing to acknowledge democratic choice if it comes out in a way that isn't communistic.
Yeah, but So I'm steeped in the oceanic and European tradition of democratic socialism, where I would say that I do take seriously the principles of democracy. Right. And so I would agree that there's certainly a tradition of socialism that does not take seriously the tradition of liberal democracy. I'm just not part of that like more narrow universe of socialists. I'm on another end of the socialist, spectrum universe.
Okay. Beautiful. Does anyone have like
well,
go ahead, Dad.
Here's my contention,
you were
though.
DMing me a bunch of shit during the show.
Yes, I was.
Right?
This is a shit show. No, Econoboy, it just seems like you're rescuing the label of socialist from the dustbin of history. But if we flip the tables on this, you wouldn't accept this if it was being done for the label of fascist. If there were like good fascists who come along and say, you know what, I'm not like those old fascists. I'm going to be a democratic fascist. We have some differences of opinion.
Or is the example of a tradition of fascism where it contemporarily, like Econoboy's pointed to, where that it emerged that there was this group of plausibly nice fascists.
I think there are cuddly socialists, but there's not cuddly fascists, at least from my reading of history. Maybe History Speaks can speak on that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, socialism has a much broader tradition. There's a Western tradition that I think, as opposed to the East and the Eastern Europe and the Third World, where Econoboy probably falls into. So I think the label is different than fascism. But I guess I'm just interested in how he thinks. I guess one other question I have for all of you guys.
Wait, do you agree? Wait. Do you agree that there's a huge? I just want to get like an agreement. Like you agree, therefore, don't you, with Econoboy, that it's fundamentally different and that it's not as problematic? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, and also, even if we go for Marxism,
I'm not sure I do, but go ahead.
Okay, but even I would even say this: even if we're just making the comparison, Marxism, Leninism to Nazism, it's not a difficult discussion. I mean, you have Joseph Stalin, yes, you have Mao Zedong, but even those cases I don't think are comparable evils to Hitler. But you also have like Khrushchev or Mikhail Gorbachev or Castro. I mean, I'm not saying these are good regimes, but it's not even the same moral.
They're horrible.
Universe.
Hold on, I want to take issue with this because okay, I'll even grant you that. But it's like saying, well, would you rather be burned alive or be thrown off a building? Thrown off the building is probably going to hurt less, right? It's probably better in every conceivable way. But at the end of the day, you're still dead. It's still not something you want. It's still something that's very, very bad. Right?
Why do you keep ignoring Econoboy's contemporary examples of a socialist tradition?
Because they don't they exist in a liberal framework, right? They exist in a liberal framework.
He's a liberal. He's a liberal.
Really quick. Wick, we had this whole conversation about how even Marx himself said that lower stage communism would be stamped with the society of its past. That obviously,
I don't have a problem with Econoboy.
Obviously, you would have no, but you're saying.
But I have a problem with some of the people who aren't who you are, in my opinion, running cover for.
But wait, you're making 2 points at once. You're making 2 points at once.
You're making
you're making 1 point, which is that kind of socialism only exists in liberal frameworks. I'm saying socialism and liberal frameworks are entirely compatible, and in fact predicted to be compatible by Marx.
I'm going to grant you all that.
Now,
I'm going to grant you all that because that doesn't matter to my point. My point is that there is a sizable number of people who call themselves socialist who are not you, Econoboy. They do not share your values. They are simply using your label, and you are laundering the term for them.
And I'm going to grant you that.
Bad things to destroy liberal democracy.
Related to this, do we actually think Hasan, Trader Aid, Mike from PA, that these people are actually serious about an authoritarian system?
Yes, Mike from PA. I can't speak to Trader Aid, but Mike from PA, Hasan, absolutely yes. They absolutely would get the power to do what they wanted to do. It would be a tyrannical regime. There would be blood on the streets.
I have a problem with the assumption. One of the assumptions is that Aaron is in favor of an authoritarian regime. I don't have any evidence of that.
Again, I said aside from Trader Aid, we're talking about. I'm talking about Mike from PA. I'm talking about Hasan. I am very familiar with them, and I'm telling you, I believe with all my heart, right? And I have evidence that they would be authoritarian in a way that if they had control and if they had power, far worse than Trump. And I don't like Trump. I voted against Trump. I think Trump is currently the biggest threat to free speech, for example, that we've ever seen, right? But I am telling you, if Mike from PA and Hasan had the power that Trump has, they would be worse.
Democratic socialists and cooperativists predate all of these like tankies or whatever. The fucking
cool.
That's fine, right? So the tankies, right? They pretend to be democratic. Most of them say that if they weren't democratic, they wouldn't be socialist. So they're all putting that in their line, right? All of this collective ownership, this collectivization, it's all because of the idea that there should be democratic collective control. All of these people are lying, right? They're using our label to run cover for themselves. They're trying to steal our label. They're trying to steal the label of a good movement to try and run a bad movement. That doesn't mean that we're running cover for them.
I would just point out, I think there's an argument, it's speculative and maybe accusatory, that some of these people are confused. Let's leave Aaron out of it because we like Aaron. To be honest.
Well, I just don't know enough about I just don't know.
Okay, but let's talk about Hasan, for example, or Mike from PA.
I will say the clips I just saw from Aaron they make me want to ask more questions. Now I have concerns, right?
Well, come on.
But it's circular, right? Because the whole question is, does communism entail authoritarianism?
Yes.
And you're saying, wow, she called herself a communist.
Communist necessarily entails authoritarianism. Yes.
Yeah, but the whole point is, but the question is itself, does communism entail authoritarianism? You can't just point to a clip of someone saying they're a communist to prove that communism entails authoritarianism. You must agree with that.
But you understand that
Spanish.
You can say I'm wrong. You can say I'm wrong. Hold on. You can say I'm wrong. Right? You can say I'm wrong. But I believe
it's circular.
That
acknowledge it's circular.
Communism necessarily entails authoritarianism.
You're trying
so
to
when
prove
I
that,
say,
right? So
if I may finish,
that's the whole question.
if I may finish, when
my
I
God.
say that, hey, those clips of someone calling themselves a communist make me concerned and want to ask more questions, that is entirely consistent with everything that, again,
because this
I
is
believe in.
important. Do you think that- do you think-
can say
hold
I'm
on.
wrong, and that's
no,
fair.
the whole thing. No, I'm not saying I'm saying it's circular. The thing we're trying to prove, the thing in contention is, does communism entail a certain thing, violence, authoritarianism? And you're saying, oh my God, Erin called herself a communist, but you must acknowledge